And we are live. Last night, we gave our first impression of the bracket. We had a couple of guests on who gave their thoughts on their teams who got in the tournament. But today, after we had a good night's sleep and a full day to kind of look at the bracket, we are ready to dive in deep and go pick by pick, just like we did last year. The same crew. Nichols kept the record. We went 29-2 last year in the first round, but it was also a little bittersweet, I guess. We lost our champion, Arizona, in the first round. And then, of course, we saw Purdue losing in the first round. So I don't think that one was really on us, that Purdue pick. But we have about a whole year to prepare for this one. Nichols is more ready than ever. So let's dive in deep. You guys give your first impressions of the bracket. I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys yet. What was your initial impressions just of the bracket as a whole? Maybe some of the seed lines, last teams in, first teams out. What were your thoughts?
Carter, go ahead.
Yeah. First initial reaction was I think the committee really emphasized strength of schedule, non-conference wise, and non-conference wins this year. I think that was a common theme, maybe even more so than previous years. One that really stuck out to me is you got a Seton Hall team that went 13-7 in the Big East. Really good record conference-wise, and the Big East is traditionally a really good basketball league. To have a team finish 6 games above 500 in a major Power 5 conference and not get in the tournament, has had a lot of people scratching their heads. And then you get a team like Colorado State, where I think they finished 10-8 in the Mountain West, just barely over 500, who gets in, last 4 in. So you got a Power 5 school that finishes 13-7 and a mid-major conference team that finished 10-8. But the differentiator is that Colorado State did their work early. They had some really good non-conference wins. They piss-pounded Creighton earlier in the year, which Creighton's a really good team. Also had a really nice win against in-state rival Colorado, along with some others. And I was looking at Seton Hall's non-conference schedule. They struggled. They didn't really have any wins that stood out. And I think that ultimately hurt them come yesterday during Selection Sunday, not having any non-conference wins to really boost their resume. And as a result, a 13-7 team in the Big East got left out of the big dance, which is, interesting. Had a lot of people scratching their heads, like I said earlier, but I think that was a common theme with committee this year was they really emphasized strength of schedule non-conference wise and strength of wins non-conference. And, a lot of people thought Iowa State was in play for a 1 seed, which I thought they may be too. But I think their non-conference schedule was like 350th in the country, which I ultimately think hurt them at the end of the day. So yeah, that was a big point of emphasis that I think the committee had this year, and I think that's something to monitor moving forward.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Carter. Seton Hall definitely, I thought, was a tournament team. But it's just not what the committee had in mind this year. It's a team like Virginia who got in over them. Colorado State's in one you mentioned. They just struggled in the Mountain West, which I don't necessarily think they should have been in. I'm not a Nico Medved guy. Anyone who knows me knows that. Scumbag. But that's beside the point. I think it's an interesting bracket. I think there's a lot of parity in the bracket. I think for the most part, they did a pretty good job. Iowa State they're not a 1 seed team. That's just the way it is. So a lot of Iowa State fans are a little delusional in that sense, but it is what it is. They're definitely a really good team, but playing Kansas City like them, I mean, that's a home game for them. They get a lot of fans there. You would think Kansas would have more fans there, but they just kind of dwindled towards the end of the year. But I think they did a good job for the most part on this bracket. It's an interesting bracket this year. A lot of parity, a lot of personal storylines alongside the basketball side of things. So I'm excited to see how it unfolds the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're definitely right. The non-conference played a big factor. Like people were talking about, is Iowa State going to get a 1 or a 2 seed? They were the lowest seeded 2, so it really wasn't a factor at all. That game against Houston didn't seem like to be much of a factor at all in terms of moving up the seed line, which does confuse me a little bit. You are right about the non-conference. That was a cupcake schedule. Granted, they scheduled that back when they had Steve Prohm. They probably knew they needed to go a little easy when he was their head coach. But It was
For
awful.
sure.
I mean, they played like Grambling State, and I don't think they played like a like a team until like midway through December or late December. So they did kind of get burned by that. I still don't totally agree with it. I don't believe in my mind that they were the worst seeded two. So I think there's a lot of I thought there was a holes in this bracket in general. You look at teams.
They're better than
Seeded, yeah, I think there's teams that were seeded 2 seed lines above where they should have been. FAU's an 8, probably should have been a 10 playing in the first 4. I think Gonzaga was a little bit higher. There's some other teams too. And then you mentioned it also, Seton Hall, 13-7 in the Big East. Now, granted, this year was a little bit, I guess, tougher with some of those bid thieves. That's more than they had. I think 2 or 3 more than normal. Just like 1 or 2. I think 4 this year, 3 or 4. So that does make the bubble a little bit stronger. But I just don't get how Virginia gets in. I think you could have made a case for Seton Hall. I think you can make a case for Oklahoma, obviously Indiana State, and St. John's, maybe a couple of those schools. But I didn't think there was any case for Virginia, just from what I've seen, how I've seen them play. Obviously, their brand of basketball is not for hardly anybody at all. But even so, compared to some of those past teams, they just don't compare to some of those other Virginia teams. So I think that was the only team I didn't think you could make any case for, really, and they put them in. That was my biggest gripe. Obviously, people are always going to be pissed at the committee, but this year I thought there's a lot of head scratchers this year. I think they kind of just gave up a little bit after conference championship week. It seems like a lot of these teams were set in stone. I don't think conference tournaments really moved the needle for anybody, really. I think they kind of just plugged in some of those bubble teams at the end, but I felt like the top 2 seeds they already had picked in the conference tournament, I don't think moved the needle for hardly anybody. So that was my opinion on it. Let's not spend too much time on that. Let's get into the heart of the bracket. And today's the first day with no college basketball, I think, since the beginning of the season, probably. Maybe there was a dead day in Christmas. I don't remember. But we have the day off. We get right back into it tomorrow with the first 4. Let's take a look at the games tomorrow. Tipping off, of course, always in Dayton. And we have the 16 seeds first. Nichols, maybe you might have to take the lead on this. I know you know your mid-majors pretty well. Montana State and Grambling. Grambling, I believe, is the champions of the SWAC. And then Montana State kind of ran the table. Is that the Big Sky that won that?
Yep.
Yeah, they kind of ran the table in that tournament. I don't think they were like at the top 3 seed in that one. They were one of the conference tournament teams whose 1 seed went down. So I think Grambling was the top team in the SWAC. Personally, I think I'm going to take Montana State here. Even though they weren't the top dog in the Big Sky, I think the SWAC is just far below everybody else. Even if you're the top team in it, I'm going to take Montana State. But again, it's a 16 seed. You'd probably just be a coin flip between these two.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've got Montana State. Did a really nice job in the Big Sky tournament. Obviously, Eastern Washington fell early on to Sacramento State. They do kind of the interesting bracket. They don't have your typical one plays. I believe they're a 10-team league. They don't have your typical one plays the winner of 8 and 9. They have one plays the winner of 9, 10, and 2 plays the winner of 7, 8. So I don't really like that, but not your traditional bracket. But Montana State obviously took care of business, took down in-state rival Montana in the Big Sky final. Grambling State, their first NCAA tournament appearance in Division I, having Elite 8 back in 1958 at the Division II level. But good for the Tigers going dancing, but their run will end in Dayton.
Yeah, no, I got Montana State. I actually watched their whole game against Montana in the Big Sky Championship. I left that game really impressed. They were down 11 with, I think, 14, 15 minutes left in the second half. They went on a 22-0 run or something like that. And they were playing some really good basketball. They had some size and athleticism. They looked like they were playing their best basketball at the right time of the year. And didn't know that statistic about Grambling, Josh. So congrats to them on making their first NCAA tournament as a Division I school. But, yeah, I got Montana State. I think they're going to win comfortably tomorrow.
All right, so the first official pick in the bracket goes to Montana State. And moving along to the marquee matchup tomorrow night. Mentioned it a little bit. Virginia gets in. I thought Colorado State. I said some of those teams that were seated a little bit too high, a little bit too low. I forgot to say Colorado State I don't think should be playing in the first 4. I don't think any of those big Mountain West schools should have been playing in the first 4. I think Michigan State, the way they played down the stretch. I know it's the Izzo factor, but I think they played their way into the first four. Florida Atlantic was a team I think ranked in the top 15 to start the year, and then they kind of slid down. They didn't even finish first. I don't even know if they finished second in the AAC this year. And then they bowed out kind of early in the conference tournament. I felt like they obviously talented enough to make the tournament. Never were in doubt that I think they're going to be bounced out, but I think they should have probably been the first team to be playing in the first four. So then we get Colorado State. They are a 2.5-point favorite, by the way. I got that wrong. Montana State plays Wednesday. Sorry. So Montana State, we have our first winner on Wednesday. The game tomorrow night is Wagner and Howard. So we can pick that one after this one. Virginia, though, does play tomorrow night against Colorado State. They are 2.5-point, or Colorado State is a 2.5-point favorite. I think I would take the Rams in that one. It's a little bit tighter spread than I think. Like I said, I think Colorado State should be an 8 seed or a 9 seed. So I have them winning by like 4 or 5, maybe more. So give me Colorado State in the game tomorrow night.
I'm going to disagree with you here, Mize. I'm going Virginia. Tony Bennett. I like their style of play. I know it's not always the attractive style. They play a lot of defense, not a lot of points, but they're a good defensive team. And Colorado State's, like I said, they had a good non-conference schedule, played well through that to earn their recognition, but they just kind of struggled in the Mountain West, just over 500. And obviously the Mountain West getting a lot of love this year. I do think a lot of that has to do with San Diego State's run last year. I don't think the Mountain West has more than 4 teams in if San Diego State doesn't go to the title game last year, just with the poor performance they've had traditionally as of late in the big dance. But I think it's one of those games, Virginia, Colorado State. It's 2 teams. It could get ugly, as in just not a great basketball game to watch, but at the same time could be a very close game. However, I am taking Virginia. I'm not a Nico Medved guy. We know this. Tony Bennett, 3-D. Give me the Cavs.
I'm going to go with Meisner here, and here's the reason why. I've watched Colorado State a couple times this year. I found myself watching a lot of Mountain West basketball. They haven't been playing their best basketball late, but I think tomorrow is going to be a close game. And in close games, especially in March, you got to rely on guard play. And Colorado State has one of the best point guards in the country in Isaiah Stevens. He's averaging 16.5 points a game, along with 7 assists, and he's shooting 44% from the three-point line. So I think this game is going to be close. It's going to be close late. And Isaiah Stevens is going to make plays down the stretch, which a lot of key guards do in March. So I got the Rams with Mize.
You are right, Nichols. Obviously, that's what Virginia relies on is their defense. But, I mean, their offense usually is equipped to kind of play up to them. Usually, they can get it up at the 60s. Their offense has been way worse than normal this year. It just isn't the Virginia world. I don't know. I just don't see them winning this game. I do think they can kind of keep it close, though. Just like you said, they play nasty defense. Colorado State might get off to a slow start. They could kind of make it ugly, too, as well. But I think, like you said, Stevens, I think, is just going to lead the Rams to a win tomorrow night. We did flip-flop the 16 games, though. So Wagner plays Howard tomorrow night. Howard was in the tournament last year. I don't think they even had to play in a playing game last year. Maybe they did. I don't remember. But this year they do have to play in the playing game. Wagner barely gets in, 16-15 from the Northeast Conference. I don't believe they were favorites in that conference. I think they kind of came out of nowhere too. Howard's favored by 3.5. They have some experience last year. I think they played Kansas. So give me the Bison to roll. They were the top dogs in the conference all year. They did win the conference tournament. So give me the Bison with some experience to pull away from a Wagner team who I think just should be happy to be there.
I'm with you. I've got Wagner, or I've got Howard, sorry. Wagner, one of those teams, just they're in the tournament, but they don't have a whole lot of experience there. Howard's been there. They're battle-tested, played Des Moines last year against Kansas, obviously ran off the floor, but, I mean, it's your typical 116 game. But this year in the plan, I do like Howard to get into the round of 64.
Well, experience means a lot in March, and they might have the most experienced player in college basketball history in Seth Towns. I think he's going on year 8 or something with
eighth year.
He's had a stint in Harvard as well as Ohio State, I believe. Is that right, Josh?
Yes.
And it looks like he's having a nice year, averaging 14 a game. So experience wins. Give me Howard.
All right. So we have both 16 games picked. Howard and Montana State moving on. And then tomorrow night at 8:10, the second game, Colorado, who nearly won the conference tournament. And then you have Boise State, who was, again, I mean, they did give the Mountain West some love, getting all the teams in. There was none of the teams who we thought were going to get in that missed. So they did give them love, but I just still don't think they were watching ball this year. Mountain West, I think also, despite getting the love with all the teams, also at the same time was slighted quite a bit. Boise State, in my bracketology, I had them as a solid 8. I didn't think they were even close to being on the bubble. And so here they are playing in the first 4. And you know what? It's even more tough for them because I think they're going to go down to Colorado. I really like it. Unless they can get Lampkin into foul trouble somehow, I think they're just going to dominate. I like what I saw from Colorado to make a push to get into the tournament. They fell a little bit short to Dana Altman in the conference title game. But really, I mean, they kind of did their damage in that conference tournament to solidify a spot. And I think they're going to continue to roll. And just unfortunate for Boise State, I don't think they should be playing in this game. I think it should be in an 8-9 matchup somewhere. I think they should avoid the bubble. But instead, I think they're going to end the game because of whatever the reason it was for the committee to bring them down. And I think they're going to lose the Bucks.
I'm with you. I've got Colorado. I think just too much firepower on that roster. Look at NBA prospects. You got Cody Williams. He's going to be a first-round pick. Older brother Jalen Williams plays for the Thunder, was out of Santa Clara. But then you look at Eddie Lampkin. I don't know if Boise State has the size to really compete with him on the inside. And then Colorado's got KJ Simpson and Tristan Da Silva as well. I like Colorado to win handily.
Yeah, I like Colorado as well. They got 5 different guys scoring in double figures, which is a lot what Josh just said. A lot of firepower. They got multiple guys that can beat you. I think this is going to be key in their playing game against Boise State. So I got Colorado as well.
All right, so pretty calm and collected there on the first 4 picks. Didn't have any really heated discussions. I like that. I think that means we're geared up towards a good bracket. So let's, of course, start off in the East region where we have the number one overall seed, the UConn Huskies, who, of course, won the tournament last year as a 4 seed and just dominated everybody in their path, just tore everybody apart. And I thought they had a pretty – I mean, obviously there was a lot of upsets last year in the bracket, but I still thought they had a pretty challenging way to get there. Just shelled everybody. Now, of course, everybody is on the hype train for them to get back and win it again this year. That's like the general consensus. Obviously, there's still a lot of people who are high on Houston, but from what I've seen, everyone is saying UConn's going to get back. Well, we haven't had a repeat champ in college basketball since Florida, I think 06 or 07. I think those are the years, or 07, 08, one of those two. I think it was 06, 07. But those Florida teams were, I mean, absolutely stacked. And obviously, that was still in the era of, players going to the draft early, but they had a very veteran-laden team. And they just don't really have a lot of teams like that anymore, especially with the portal. Even if you have a veteran team coming back, you still have new additions. You still kind of have to form a same team. That makes it even tougher for, I think, a repeat champ. Now, obviously, we have to go pick by pick here. I'll let you take the swing of this one, Josh, because one of the comments wants to know, bring it up here, what your opinion is on the Stetson Hatters and can they win it all. So I'll give you the first crack at the bracket here in the East region.
Stetson had a great year. Obviously, congrats to them for winning the Atlantic Sun. That's a fun tournament. They took down Austin Peay. They had a guard drop. I think it was over 40 in the championship game. So obviously they can fill it up, no doubt, but I don't think they have what it takes to win it all. And their season's going to end here in the first round. UConn, just too much firepower. Danny Hurley, great coach, and he's got his boys rolling at the right time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, crazy enough, I mean, these past 4 or 5 years, we have seen some 16 seeds knock off some 1 seeds, but I don't think there's any funny business here. UConn's too good, really, really good this year. They're going to win. They're going to win handily.
Yeah, congratulations to Stetson. I think they also making their first appearance in the NCAA tournament. Didn't want them to get in, though. I had Austin Peay winning the Ohio Valley. and the ASUN, and they got there, and they were like the 4 seed, and then they blew it to Stetson. So I guess good for the Hatters, though. Also, great mascot. So good for them to finally get in the big dance. They earned their right. UConn, oh my gosh. When we look at the spread here on this game, I don't care what it is. I think I would take UConn. It's probably going to be like 25 points plus. I think I would take UConn to beat the crap out of them. Obviously, we're in consensus here. I want to see what the spread is on that game real quick. It's 26.5. I think UConn wins by about 36.5 maybe. So I like UConn to roll as well too. So obviously no surprises there. St. Peter's did it last year. UMBC did a couple years ago. So it's becoming more of a trend. It's not going to happen to the defending champs. So we're moving on to the 8-9 matchup here. FAU, who I mentioned, I don't think should be playing in a game that doesn't involve the first 4. But they're an 8 seed, not even a 9. They're an 8 seed. This doesn't make any sense to me. Northwestern, the 9. This is a great first round matchup. I'll let one of you guys take the first swing at this one. I don't care who goes first.
I can talk. Gosh, I really like this year's Northwestern team. This might be Chris Collins' best coaching job. Unfortunately, the injury bug has hit them a little bit. Their combo guard, Ty Berry, he's been out for a good amount of the year, and he won't be playing in the NCAA tournament, so that'll hurt. But, Boo Buie, he is easily a top 5 point guard in the country, and that's a guy you want with the ball in his hands late in game in March. So, I don't know. I just kind of feel like Florida Atlantic's kind of been riding the high from last year. Didn't really – I think they had 2 quad 1 wins all year along with a couple of quad 3 and 4 losses. They really haven't impressed me except for their win against Illinois earlier in the year. So I'm going to go Big Ten here. I'm going to go Northwestern, which is probably not the popular pick, but I think they're going to out-execute Florida Atlantic in this first game, and I like the Wildcats here.
I'm with you on that pick, Carter. Chris Collins is a first-round merchant. We've seen it. 2017 and last year, he's 2-0 in the first round. Florida Atlantic has a lot of firepower, though, and they have tournament experience. Dusty May's done a good job. Obviously, his name's going to be tied to some job openings here, even though he did stay last year. Potentially a guy we could see coaching in the Power 6 this coming year. But I do like Northwestern. Obviously, no Ty Berry's a big blow for them, but Boo Buie is a great player. Brooks Barnheiser, too. So they've got some veterans on their team, and I expect the kids from Evanston to advance to the round of 32 to play against Connecticut.
I'm with the Wildcats train as well. Like I said, I don't think FAU should be favored in this game. I don't think it should be the 8 seed, and they are favored, by the way, 2.5. I think the wrong team's favored. Give me Northwestern. You mentioned it. Boo Buie. That's my only answer. This guy is just one of the best players. In recent Big Ten history. I love this guy, and I totally agree too. This is Chris Collins' best coaching job. I don't see them going down in the first round to a team who I think is overseeded, and really, like you said, is playing kind of up the coattails of last season. FAU did everything in their path to miss the tournament, and somehow they don't have to play in the first 4, and they're an 8 seed. I think they got the wrong team as the 8 here. I think they have the wrong team favored, so give me the Wildcats as well. Moving on to the next round. Great pick, guys. Moving down one spot, we have San Diego State, the defending runner-ups, against UAB, another team who made a run in the conference tournament. Also in the AAC, so you have 2 AAC teams right there close to each other in the bracket. I'm a Mountain West guy. I'm a San Diego State guy. The runner-ups from last year. They're not going to lose to a UAB team who just got fluky the last couple games. So I like San Diego State, an easy one here.
Yeah. San Diego State. Brian Dutcher's done a heck of a job. Obviously went to the national title game last year. I do think UAB's got some firepower offensively, though. However, they're one of the worst defenses still playing this season. They do got some good players, though. Eric Gaines, freak athlete, their point guard, played at LSU before transferring to UAB. And Yaxel Lendeborg, good player too, almost a double-double machine for UAB. And UAB's got some good wins this year. They did knock off Drake in overtime down in Birmingham in December, but I just think San Diego State's going to be too much for him. Jaden DeLee's a really good player. Jaden Ledee, sorry, and Reese Waters as well. Brian Dutcher's going to have his guys round of 32.
I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm going to take the Blazers of UAB. I watched a lot of their American Conference Championship game, and they look good. And then I watched their semifinal game too against South Florida. Andy Kennedy's done a really nice job with this team. He brought Ole Miss to the NCAA tournament years ago, and he's doing the same with the UAB Blazers. I kind of think they're one of those teams that just get hot at the right time. And I also think San Diego State's going to be a popular pick to make a run again. But it's hard to do that 2 years in a row. I'm not discrediting their team or what they did last year. I just think it's really hard to do that 2 years in a row. So I kind of got an upset pick here. I'm going to go with the Blazers.
All right. So we have, I think it's a first pick. We're not 100% in agreement on. We have 2 out of 3 on. We have 2 out of 3 against UAB. We have San Diego State moving on in the second round there. So is that what we did last year, right? Just 2 out of 3 is the official pick. All right. So San Diego State is moving on to the next round. Let's bring our attention now to the 4-13 seed. And it was Yale winning the Ivy League, barely beat Brown. And the Ivy League obviously is new to the tournament, the conference tournament format. It was always just a regular season champ. Now they have a conference tournament, but it's only the top 4 seeds. Brown got in as the 4 with the losing record and nearly made it in the tournament. Yale holds them off, though. And Yale's an experienced team, and their coach has been, I think he's been at Yale for 25 years plus. He was the head coach when they knocked off Baylor probably about 7-8 years ago, something like that. So he's been around for a while. And obviously these Ivy League teams are kind of a tricky team in the first round. It seems like they either get piss pounded or they beat you. It's one or the other. And now you have Auburn, who is the SEC champs. Do we see any funny business here? Personally, it's always tough to go against. There's always a popular pick with the Ivy League team, but I think Auburn gets by them. Maybe they get a little bit of challenge, but Yale went down to the wire to Brown. Auburn has a lot of firepower, playing well. I think Bruce Pearl rolls against Yale.
Yeah, I agree. I think Auburn's going to win this game, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. As you said, the Ivy League's had a ton of success in the NCAA tournament. I also love that they're in it. They had the conference tournament for the first time this year. We saw some craziness. Obviously, Princeton was the early season favorite with how they did last year, and they had a great year this year. But Brown knocked them off, and they ended up playing Yale in the championship game. And then I think Yale won on a buzzer beater, right? Or last second or late game shot.
Yeah, it was a buzzer beater.
Yeah, so awesome first conference tournament for the Ivy League. But no, I agree. I'm going to go Auburn here, but don't be surprised if Yale covers the spread here and makes it a better game than people think.
Yeah, I agree. I've got Auburn moving on. I think Bruce Pearl's done a really good job putting this team together. They're really deep. They're athletic. They play great defense, and they can score it too. So I think Yale keeps it close for the first half or so, but Auburn's going to pull away. They've just got too much firepower all the way around.
All right, so we have Bruce Pearl moving on. Moving down the bracket, we have BYU and Duquesne. Duquesne, it was one of those bid thieves that took away a spot from a Seton Hall and Oklahoma, teams like that. Winning the Atlantic 10, and I believe getting back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 77, something like that. It was a long time. I think it was back in the 70s. And then also, I believe their head coach is going to retire at the end of the year. So great run for Duquesne to get in the tournament. Now they face, in my opinion, a very loaded BYU team who I think should be a 5. I think slipped down to a 6. I guess, they kind of continue that trend of not playing a ton of teams in the non-conference. I don't think BYU had the best non-conference resume, so maybe that's what moves them down to a 6. But maybe you want to play some of these 11 seeds this year instead of the 12s. A lot of these 11 seeds are kind of teams that just were fluky and got in on the conference tournament. I think this is a great matchup for BYU. I think they will beat Duquesne quite easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got BYU as well. Yeah, I got BYU as well. They really did well in the Big 12 for their first year being in that conference. I thought maybe they'd struggle a little bit with the physicality and athleticism of the league, but they really competed well, and they can score it at will. They got a ton of guys who shoot the piss out of it. So I like BYU here. Just kind of a side note, I was surprised to see Duquesne on that 11 line. Really surprised to see him getting 11. They were a bid thief, but gosh, they just weren't really talked about by anybody. And Josh and I were shocked watching the selection show yesterday to see them on the 11 line. But good for Duquesne. I mean, there's part of me that wants to root for him with their coach retiring, kind of give him a nice ride out. But yeah, got BYU. I think BYU's got potential to win a few games here. So
Yeah, I've got BYU. Good first year in the Big 12 for them. Split with Baylor, split with Iowa State. I mean, I think they surprised some people. The Big 12 was a gauntlet this year, so really impressive what they did. But Duquesne's got some firepower as well. Leading scorer Day's averaging almost 17 a game. Jimmy Clark's over 15 a game for the Dukes. So a great run through the A10 for them, and a cool storyline, obviously, with their coach's final year. But I don't see them winning a game against BYU. I think BYU's just shown throughout the year that they're gonna outshoot you, and they're an athletic team too. So they'll play well down the stretch of the game, and I like BYU to advance.
All right, so we have the Cougars moving on. The 3-14 matchup, the champs of the Big Ten yesterday, cutting down the nets. It's the Fighting Illini against Morehead State, who I believe has some history in the tournament. Nichols, I think you would probably know this. Didn't Kenneth Fareed play for Morehead State, or am I getting that wrong? He did. And I think he got into the tournament
for Morehead State.
Yeah, I think he got into the tournament back in the day. So a little bit of history here. Obviously, Illinois is loaded with talent, NBA talent, and they looked really good in the conference tournament. Got behind in, I think, both of the games against Ohio State and Nebraska early on and came back. And then obviously Wisconsin kind of went back and forth there, and then they eventually pulled away. I was very impressed with Illinois. I think that was a team that a lot of people thought would probably lose right away. I know that Ohio State was a popular pick against them in that quarterfinal matchup. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're just ready for the tournament. They're not built for the conference tournament. That's not Illinois. And they proved a lot of people wrong. I usually don't like to say a lot of positive things about the Illini, especially in recent years, as our kind of Iowa-Illinois rivalry has kind of built up a little bit over the past couple of years. But I will give them credit. They ran the table in the Big Ten, and I think they will get by at Morehead State. I don't see any upset here happening.
I agree with you. I think Illinois this is a deep team. Terrence Shannon, Marcus Damas, Coleman Hawkins. They've got threats. They got weapons. I think Coleman Hawkins only scored 7 or 8 points yesterday, and they were in the mid-90s against Wisconsin. Looked really, really good. Dane Dange is a nice piece underneath for them, but I just think they're going to be too much. Morehead State, a terrific run through the Ohio Valley. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see the parity of national championship between Longwood and Morehead State, but I've got Illinois winning, and I think they're poised to make a really deep run.
Got the opportunity to watch Illinois in person yesterday against Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship, and they were impressive. Terrence Shannon is the real deal. He is explosive as anybody in college basketball, and you cannot keep him out of the paint. And if he's hitting three-point shots as well, he's very hard to guard. And honestly, even more so than him, I was more impressed with Marcus Domask and the way he played. Transferred from Southern Illinois. Talk about a guy who knows how to play the game. He's great in the pick and roll. And he's a guy, late shot clock, you get it to him in the mid-post. He's got a really good mid-range game, and he can hit tough contested shots. And like Josh mentioned, their role guys are awesome too. Coleman Hawkins, 6'10", versatile, can really shoot it. And then Dane Dange, their big man off the bench, has been playing great lately, along with Ty Rogers, who starts for him too. So on paper, they look awesome. They got all the pieces, and they're playing their best basketball right now. I think they've won a number of games in a row. Their last loss was to Purdue at home. So I really like Illinois. I think they're kind of a trendy pick to maybe make a run here. So give me an Illinois.
All right, so we have the Illini avoiding the upset. And then that moves us to, I think, one of the best first-round games that we have in any region. Washington State versus, obviously, Nichols will take the lead on this one. as the resident Drake fan and supporter, what do you have here? I know we talked a little bit last night when you were on the podcast. You said it was kind of a tough pick. What have your mind changed at all? What do you feel about your Bulldogs here in this first round matchup?
Two great young coaches. I think it's a really enticing first round, and I think this is one of those games that there's a lot of storylines away from basketball. Joe Yesufu was Drake's darling in the 2021 tournament. Really helped him down the end of the year when Roman Penn was hurt, DJ Wilkins was hurt. So really good for him to get to play against the former Bulldogs. Unfortunately, he's hurt. He's not going to be playing. So Drake's got a chance to kind of go against one of their own. Carlos Rosario is a backup forward for Drake. He actually transferred in this year from Washington State. So a lot of personal storylines go along with this, but I think Kyle Smith's done a heck of a job in Pullman. Obviously, you can't argue with what Darren DeVries has done in Des Moines. I think they're the third winningest program in the last 4 years, 125 wins or something like that. They're up there with Houston and Gonzaga. But really impressive job, and I think it's a really enticing game. I think it's two teams that are capable of winning multiple games. However, they're going to be meeting in the first round, and I'm rolling with the Bulldogs. I think they got the best player on the floor. Actually, I know. They got Tucker DeVries. He's the best player on the floor. He's got a chance to be a star in the tournament, and I like Drake to move on, and I like them to win by double digits.
I got Drake as well. As a fellow Appleton Parkersburg alum, I got to root for my guy, Darren DeVries. He's done a phenomenal job there. You're going to see his name circulate in the coaching carousel with some big-time jobs, I think, here coming here in a few weeks. But obviously, Drake, Tucker DeVries, phenomenal player, two-time Larry Bird, Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. But I think what's going to really help Drake in this game and potentially more in the tournament is Darnell Brody, who's had a phenomenal year. A lot of times these mid-major schools don't necessarily have the size and physicality at that center spot or that 5 position. That's not the case for Drake. They have an absolute tank at the 5 position, and Darnell Brody started off at Seton Hall, and he's just continually gotten better at his time at Drake. I think he was first team MVC this year. Just had a phenomenal year. So, yeah. Just done a great job, and he's going to be a key piece for Drake. If they want to win this game and potentially make a Cinderella Sweet 16 Elite 8 run, they got to have Darnell Brody play well, and I think he will. I got Drake.
I went back and forth on this one, and I think Drake just got an absolute tough draw, and I think it's going to be a coin flip. I think he can go either way on this one. And as much as I want to pick Drake, I do think Washington State will get by. I wish these two teams didn't play each other because I think they're both teams that are deserving of a win. And I think I would lean Washington State. I mean, they beat Arizona twice during the regular season. They play great deep. They keep it kind of low scoring, but I can see Drake winning this one either way. So I will pick Washington State, but this is a coin flip, and I probably will be cheering for Drake. But it's just tough because these are two teams who I'd really wanted to see win a game. But you got to pick somebody. I will take Washington State. But the official pick, though, is the Bulldogs. That's general consensus. So we do have the Bulldogs moving on to the next round. Now, does that mean they will be playing Iowa State? They play in the 2-15 matchup. So there's a potential Drake and Iowa State matchup in the second round, in the round of 32. But first, Iowa State has to get by South Dakota State, champions of the Summit League, who took down University of Denver in the championship game. South Dakota State has been to the tournament in recent years. I think so. Matt Mims is a 6 year. I think he's gone like 3 years. So they've gone like 3 or 4 years in the past, like 5 or 6 years. So they have some experience. Obviously it's a 15-2. And the last time Iowa State won the conference tournament, everyone was thinking they're going to go make a run. They lost in the first round. So there is potential. I'm not going to be able to take South Dakota State, especially what I saw with the Cyclones' performance in the Big 12 championship game. And I just don't think South Dakota State matches up well at all with Iowa State. So I think this will be a rather easy game. Give me Iowa State, double digits.
Yeah, I agree. I got Iowa State. This is a game where South Dakota State may not get over 40 points. I mean, Iowa State is so good defensively. You watch what they did to Houston, they just suffocated them. And I think Iowa State's athleticism and physicality is really just going present some problems for South Dakota State. So I got the Cyclones. They've been really impressive this year. As an Iowa fan, I got to give them credit. They've been really good in a tough league. I don't think they have any problems with South Dakota State.
I promised I'd shout them out. So South Dakota State, Connor Beatty, the Jackrabbits, they had a good run. Good win for them in the Summit League title game. And I do think they are a 15 seed. That could be a scary matchup depending on who they drew, but they drew Iowa State, and I don't think that's a winnable game for them. Had they gotten Marquette or someone like that, I think that's a vulnerable game. But South Dakota State I don't think they have the firepower to stay with Iowa State. Iowa State's so good defensively. Obviously, Carter mentioned their game against Houston, held them to 41 points in the Big 12 championship game, unheard of against the number one team in the country. They now do have the number one defensive efficiency ranking in college basketball. So a tough draw for whoever's going to get the Cyclones in the tournament. But it was South Dakota State this year. I don't like South Dakota State to win. They do have some Iowa kids, Matt Mims, Luke Apple, pair of 60-year seniors. But unfortunately for them, I do have Iowa State rolling in this one.
All right, so we do have the Bulldogs and the Cyclones in the round of 32. What an epic game that could be if it does happen. Okay, so we have made our first round selections in the East region. UConn, the number one seed, I think just got a really tough draw. You have two Final Four teams from last year, San Diego State and FAU. Then you have Auburn, who won the SEC tournament. We have BYU, who I think is – we'll get to them later, but I'm very high on BYU. Just say that. Then you have the Big Ten champs. Then you have Big 12 champs who beat Houston by 30 points. And then you have a good Drake team. You have a good Washington State team. I mean, this is a tough draw for UConn in the East. But those are our selections in the East region. So let's move on down the bracket into what is it below them? Is that that is the West region. And the 1-16 matchup, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one. We do have Howard, though, winning that first four game to take on North Carolina. And that's where the end of the line runs for the Bison. I have North Carolina. And do we need to have any analysis here? All right. We have North Carolina beating the Howard Bison. Congratulations to the Bison, though. 2 years in a row getting to the tournament. And if they could win a game, that would be sweet for that program. And then that brings us to probably the marquee 8-9 matchup, I would say, of all these regions. And this is what we're getting kicked off with on Thursday morning. The first official first-round game, Mississippi State and Michigan State. Chris Jans is an Iowa guy, and so I was rooting for them to get kind of a favorable matchup. They did not. And they face an Izzo team who, again, like I said, I thought should be playing in the first four. They avoid the 10 seed line, so Michigan State plays as a 9-8 matchup. But even though I do think Michigan State should be in the first four and not a 9, I do have them winning this game. But, man, it's going to be tough. Mississippi State, I think, is underappreciated in the SEC this year. No one talked about them enough. Well, I can't pick against Izzo, even though they have not been playing great ball. They were a top 5 team to start the year, and they barely made the tournament. So not a lot of people – it would be interesting to see how people pick this. But I'm going to take Michigan State here.
I agree. And I'm with you. I really like Mississippi State's team. Chris Jans has done a phenomenal job in Starkville. He's the pride and joy of Wapsie Valley, small-town Iowa school, so you find yourself rooting for him. And they have a really, really good guard in Josh Hubbard who can create and make plays on his own, who played well in the SEC tournament. But it's just one of those things that you can't bet against Izzo in March. We've known this whole year that Michigan State is an extremely talented team, bringing a lot of guys back from the Sweet 16 team last year. Everybody's just kind of waiting for him to play like they're capable of. And there's something about Izzo. He gets his teams to play well in this tournament. I think Michigan State is going to win, and I think they have a chance to make another run.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Michigan State. Obviously, Mississippi State poses a lot of threats to Michigan State. Josh Hubbard, Tolu Smith, DJ Jeffries. DJ Jeffries, experienced player, fifth-year senior, started his career out at Memphis and now in Starkville. They've had some talented players go through there. They play stifling defense. And, they beat Tennessee twice. They beat Auburn once. I mean, they've got some quality wins on their resume, but I do think you can't really go against Izzo, especially in the first round. He's got a winning record as a lower seed. That's not something you see a whole lot. And, everyone knows the month of March is the month of Izzo. So obviously that's a scary draw for Mississippi State. Chris Jans has just done a heck of a job. One of those coaches out of the state of Iowa that's just producing at a big time school, and obviously really happy for him. And it's great for our state too. But I do think Michigan State's too much firepower for Mississippi State. I do have them advancing for a blue blood matchup, Michigan State, North Carolina in the round of 32.
All right, so we are sweeping with the Spartans to get past Mississippi State, and like you said, Josh, set up an iconic second round matchup. I think that's what everybody that's a basketball fan is probably rooting for, that matchup in the second round. Now let's go to the 5-12 matchup. The 5-12 matchup is crazy every year. It's always a fun game. This is especially crazy because you have St. Mary's, who's a mid-major, but ranked most of the year, and then you have Grand Canyon, another mid-major, who I believe either is knocking on the doorstep of 30 wins or did pick up 30 wins. And they're a team that also has gotten to the tournament in the past. Actually played the Hawkeyes a couple years ago as a 15 seed. And now this year, obviously their best team probably in school history. And they're led by Bryce Drew, tournament legend as a player. Then got Valparaiso to, I think, multiple tournaments. And now they're one of the worst. They've fallen way off the deep end, and it's crazy to think that he got in the tournament multiple times. Now he's at Grand Canyon. I'll let you guys start off with this one. One of you guys can take the lead on this one. Is there an upset here? Does Grand Canyon take down St. Mary's?
It's a potential upset. I do think Grand Canyon has the offensive ability to really frustrate St. Mary's. And I think just the way St. Mary's wants to play, they want to play defense. They want it to be slow. They want games in the 50s and 60s. If Grand Canyon comes out scoring early and St. Mary's finds themselves in a hole, I don't know if they'll be able to get out of it. Grand Canyon's led by Tyon Grant Foster, Indian Hills Community College legend. Actually played a year at Kansas after that before transferring out, had some injuries last year, and now ended up this year at Grand Canyon. So I do think it's an interesting matchup. It's a Western United States matchup. However, I am going to pick St. Mary's. I think it's a safe pick. They're so good defensively, and they really stifle Gonzaga in that West Coast Conference Championship game in Las Vegas. However, I would not be surprised if the Antelopes move on, but I am going to stick with the Gales.
I'm going to take the Antelopes here. I got Grand Canyon. I think this is going to be a trendy upset pick for a lot of people in their brackets. St. Mary's plays a really slow, muck-it-up style of basketball, which can be very tough to beat. Don't get me wrong, especially if they're getting stops defensively. I mean, they really slow the pace down. It's like a old school Wisconsin, Virginia type style of basketball. But I think the West Coast Conference was down this year a little bit. Obviously, with Gonzaga not being maybe as talented and as good as they have been in past years, I think that's going to be a problem for St. Mary's. I don't think that schedule is going to really do them any favors, that conference schedule. And I think Grand Canyon just got a really good team. I know this was a few years ago, but when Iowa played them when they were the 15th seed, they gave Iowa some troubles. Bryce Drew's really got a good program down there in Grand Canyon. And I think they're going to get their first tournament win here. I don't know if they've ever won in the tournament before, but it's probably their first tournament win in recent history. I think they're going to get a win here. I like the Antelopes.
All right, I'll go with the second pick here. Or excuse me, Nichols had St. Mary's, so I have the tiebreaker. And with my tie-breaking vote, I am going to go with St. Mary's. And I think this is going to be these teams play kind of similar style. They're not afraid to kind of make it ugly. But in a game of that style, I personally am going to go with the Gales in this one. I just think I've had my eye on St. Mary's all year long. And I think this is a team that you might laugh when I say this, but I think can go on a run. And St. Mary's has been in the Sweet 16. It's been a while ago, but they took down Villanova way back in the day. I think Villanova was either a 1 or 2 seed that year. I just think that, St. Mary's is a savvy team. And I think they're going to get by Grand Canyon here. I'm a big fan of Marcelonis. He does a little bit of everything as a guard. They also have a freshman guard who plays pretty well. They're always pretty deep teams. They have a good bench, St. Mary's does. They might not have a lot of star power at the top, but they play very well as a unit. And I think they have potential to go on maybe a little bit of a run. So I'm going to have them get by a Grand Canyon in the first round. But I think it's going to be a great game. I'm glad that game's a night game too. I think that's Friday night, like 9 o'clock. I'm looking forward to that one. It's going to be a great game in the 5-12 matchup there. But I do have St. Mary's with my tie-breaking vote pushing them ahead. And then you have the 4-13 matchup. Alabama obviously can score at will. They were a lot of people's pick to win it all last year, went down early. Now they're a 4 seed this year. A lot of people thought they could probably be a top 2 seed again, top 3 seed. They kind of struggled a little bit. Now they find themselves at a 4 seed, but with a lot of potential, probably, especially with their offensive firepower, to maybe make a little bit of a push. Charleston also, though, plays the same style of ball. A lot of threes, up tempo. So this is going to be a fun game. I'm not a big Alabama fan. Personally, I will be cheering against them, but I don't think Charleston has enough fire. I think they can keep it close, though. I think this could be a single-digit game, but just too much firepower for Alabama. But I think Charleston, though, can make it a little bit interesting.
I'm with you, Mize. I'm taking Alabama, but Charleston obviously has the potential to make this really interesting. Champs of the Colonial Athletic. They are undefeated this year when they've scored 80 or more points, and Alabama can't stop a nosebleed. So that's what makes this an interesting matchup. Could see Charleston score 90, 95 points. We've just seen Alabama give up some crazy point totals this year. However, I do think they're going to win. Mark Sears, they've got experience, but Nate Oates, I mean, hate him or love him, he's a good coach, and he's done a really good job at Alabama so far. And I do have them advancing past Charleston.
Yeah, I got Alabama as well. This is going to be a really fun game to watch. Up and down, points all over. I'm really excited for this one. I believe Charleston made the tournament last year as well. So congrats on them making it 2 years in a row. Good program they got over there. But I got Alabama. I just don't think Charleston's going to be able to get enough stops to win this game. It's going to be a lot of points scored. But Mark Sears is a great guard. Grant Nelson's also a really solid player, transferred from North Dakota State. So I got Alabama here, but they haven't been playing well as of late. So I wouldn't be surprised if Charleston gives them a run for their money.
All right, so we have Alabama moving on. All three in agreement there. Now we have another 11-6 matchup here. I'll just going to come out and say it. I'm not impressed at all with Clemson. They started off the year like 11-0 or 11-1, but struggled in the ACC. And this is one of the weakest ACC teams in recent memory. And we've said that like multiple times over the past couple of years. They've said the ACC has been down, and I think they found a new low even this year. New Mexico kind of went on a slump in about early to mid-February. And for a while there, people were like, hey, they might play their way out of the tournament. Then when it mattered most, they went on a run. Richard Pitino, I think, has this Lobos team back to their full potential. So in a matchup where I don't view the Tigers to be a very high team, I think it's an easy pick for me. I like New Mexico.
I'm all over the Lobos here, Mize. I'm with you. I have not been high on Clemson at all this year, not at any point in time. They're kind of limping their way into the tournament. They've lost their last two games against Wake Forest and Boston College. The ACC's down. Just haven't been impressed with Clemson at all. And Patino's got New Mexico playing some really good basketball right now. They had a couple of really good wins in the conference tournament. They beat San Diego State, beat Colorado State. So they're playing good ball. And I like New Mexico here. I think this is going to be a really popular upset pick. I wouldn't be surprised if this spread is really, really close. I haven't checked it yet, but I'm sure it's really, really close. So I got New Mexico here.
We're going to go ahead and make it a clean sweep. I like the Lobos playing their best ball at the right time. Obviously, they did have their struggles. Mid-Mountain West Conference slate, but Jalen House and Jamal Mashburn, that's a really good 1-2 punch, especially coming from the Mountain West. They've won a boatload of games this year. I want to say they have 25 wins. But like you guys mentioned, Clemson's kind of limping their way into the tournament. They do have good players in PJ Hall and Joe Girard, experienced team. but they haven't impressed me at all this year. They did beat Alabama earlier in the year, and they do have a win over North Carolina and a win over TCU, so they have some good wins. But I just don't see a world where they really make a run in this tournament. And obviously, if you've got a Pitino coaching your team, you got a chance. I'm not as high on Richard Pitino as most people are. I'm a huge Rick Pitino fan, but obviously, as a Hawkeye, I thought Richard Pitino was. I didn't like him when he was in Minnesota. Not quite sold on him. He's obviously not his dad, but he's got coaching in his blood. So I do like New Mexico to win this first round game in advance.
All right, so we have New Mexico winning the 11-6 matchup, and I looked up the line. I have it right here. New Mexico is favored by 2. So, I mean, it's 11-6 upset, but people were picking New Mexico. Vegas thinks they're the favorites. I think Vegas has them right to be the favorite. However, I would take New Mexico like -4.
Yeah.
I think New Mexico beats them. And you guess you call it an upset technically, but I think it's just a better team. Again, like I said already, they did it correctly getting all the Mountain West teams in, but the seeds were off. New Mexico is not an 11 seed. I know they struggled down the end, but I think they're going to pick off a Clemson team, like I said, who hasn't looked impressive since fucking December. So we're moving on with a clean sweep. New Mexico over Clemson, locking that one in. Then you have Colgate, who is this, I think, their 4th tournament in a row. Congratulations to them. But every year they get beat. They get beat again. Baylor, too talented. And congratulations to Colgate. They keep winning the conference tournament. They keep getting their chances. I don't see it happening.
I got Baylor as well. I've been really impressed with this Baylor team. They have talent all over the place. Jacoby Walter is going to be a top 10 pick in this NBA draft, most likely. He's a diaper dandy, as Dick Vitale would say, really good freshman. And transfer Ray J. Dennis, their point guard. He's a stud too. Could definitely feel comfortable with him commanding the offense here in March, having the ball in his hands late in games. I just think Baylor's athleticism and talent is going to be too much for Colgate. But as you said, Colgate's made the tournament a number of years in a row, so good for them. They got a good thing going over there. But just a tough draw for them. I don't think Baylor is going to be susceptible to losing to them here in this 3 versus 14 matchup.
Colgate, the pride of the Patriot League. Hamilton, New York. Shout out Mac Marone and their football program. Great things going in Hamilton, dominating the Patriot League as of late. A league that's produced some upset teams and some good players. I think of Bucknell's teams with Mike Muscala or Lehigh, Gabe Knutson, CJ McCollum taking down Duke back in the 2012 Big Dance. However, their run ends in the round of 64. Baylor, too balanced, too talented. Scott Drew, he's a damn good ball coach. And, Baylor, 10 losses this year, not something you've really seen the last few years from a Scott Drew coach team, but I do think playing in the Little 12 it's going to help them in the tournament. And I don't see Colgate really having a chance in this one from the get.
All right, so we are in agreement there. Baylor moves on. The 7-10 matchup. This features another team that I think was seriously overseeded. Dayton Flies are a 7 seed. They did go on a crazy stretch where they were like 19-4 at one point. I think they started the year like 5-4, but then like went 19-4. But I mean, I look at the resume. Who's their best win? What are they doing here as a 7 seed? Yeah, they racked up a lot of wins, but they didn't look impressive in the conference tournament. I don't think they had any notable non-conference win at all. I mean, maybe they had beat somebody in there, but not impressed with them. They're a 7 seed. They face a Nevada team who I think also, again, was a little bit underseeded. That being said, though, even though I think Nevada's a better team, for some reason, I feel like if I pick Nevada, Dayton's going to win. I think Nevada will win. So I'm going to fade myself on this one. I think Dayton wins. Even though I don't think they're the better team, I just think that's how this matchup shakes out. And looking at the betting lines, it's pretty much a pick 'em. Nevada's favored by 1, so you could kind of flip that around. It's pretty much a pick 'em. I'm just fading myself here. I think Nevada's a better team, but I can't go with my gut every time. So I think if I fade myself this one, I'll get it right. So I'm going to take the Flyers.
I like your pick, Mize, but I am going to go with Steve Alford, Nevada. This is one of those Mountain West teams that I actually do like. 3-1 against top 25 opponents this year. They did get absolutely bent over by the Drake Bulldogs, as did many other teams this season. So not really surprised there. But look at Jared Lucas averaging almost 18 a game. Keenan Blackshear, really balanced player, 15 points to go with 5 assists, 5 rebounds a game. I do like Dayton's roster makeup here. Deron Holmes, he's averaging over 20 a game to go with 8.5 boards. And Nate Santos is a pretty solid player as well. However, Nevada's more battle tested. Dayton's 0-1 against the top 25. They lost by 14 to Houston. I don't think they were really ever in that game. I do like Nevada's resume here. This is the one time where I'm actually going to praise the Mountain West and the gauntlet Nevada made it through. I like the Wolfpack. You know, good things going there. Steve Alford got ties, former Iowa coach. So he's moving on.
I'm going to go Nevada here as well. They've won 7 of their last 8. I guess you could say they got upset by Colorado State in the conference tournament, but they've won 7 out of their last 8. They're playing really good basketball. Like Josh said, Steve Alford, former Iowa head coach, as well as UCLA. And I think he was at New Mexico State or New Mexico, one of the two, for a while there too. So he's won at a lot of different programs, brought multiple schools to the NCAA tournament. He's experienced. I think he's going to have his guys ready to go. And I got Nevada here in they're a tested team. Obviously, the Mountain West got 6 teams in this year. It's the best that league's ever been. So they're well tested, and I think they're going to get a win here.
I'm glad we're pushing the Wolfpack through. Like Josh said, former Iowa head coach Alford leading the charge. They were in the tournament last year, I think, in the first 4. This year they're back again. Don't have to play in that first 4 game. I don't like Dayton at all. I don't think they're better than Nevada. But it's just one of those games where I feel like I'm going to get pissed off if I don't pick Dayton. I feel like they're just going to win for no reason. But I am glad we're picking the Wolfpack through. I think they are the better team. And I think that's a good pick to push them through. And then you have the 2-15 matchup here, Arizona, Long Beach State. Now, fellas, this is where we might have to talk a little bit about the 2-15 matchup. Because last year I think we just said, hey, it's a shoo-in. Arizona's going to win. They did not. We picked Arizona to win the tournament. And that was one of only 3 first-round games we got wrong. A brutal one to get wrong, and a brutal way for our national champ to go down. I will say though, I am confident, 100% confident in Arizona to get by Long Beach State in a blowout. Long Beach State was not favored in the Big West at all. They actually fired their coach before the tournament started. Dan Munson, by the way, used to coach at Minnesota and actually coach at Gonzaga. He got the fucking train rolling there, and then he left to go to Minnesota. Mark Few took over. That was like at the turn of the century, I believe. So he's a seasoned coach. He's been at Long Beach State for a while. They gave him the axe. And then what does he do? He wins the Big West tournament. So it's an awkward spot. The AD's like, shit, we just fired this guy, and now he's got us in the tournament. But I think Arizona wins. I don't think it's close. And I'm not even hesitant to say that, even though they burned us last year. Give me the Wildcats.
I'm going to go Arizona too. They got a ton of talent. They always do. But for some reason, it seems like they've just underperformed the national tournament for as long as I can honestly remember. Even during the Sean Miller era, they had some really good teams. But I got Arizona, but I'm kind of rooting for Long Beach State a little bit. I kind of want Dan Munson to stick it to the administration there in Long Beach State, firing him before the conference tournament, giving him a little middle finger. Wins the conference tournament. I thought that was absolutely awesome. One of the best storylines that we've had here this week. That's what makes college basketball so awesome. But I got Arizona, but I'm kind of rooting for Long Beach State. I really hope they can at least make it a game.
Yeah. It's Arizona. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But this is a fun matchup. This is the Lute Olson tournament game here. Lute Olson, what does he have in common? He was at Long Beach State. Then he was a beloved Iowa Hawkeyes coach, and then he went to Arizona. So Lute Olson, he was quoted saying when he took the Iowa job, most people move from Iowa to Long Beach, not Long Beach to Iowa, but I wanted to break the trend. So there's your history lesson of the day. Lute Olson, Final Four coach at Iowa, 1980. Obviously coached Wartburg Hall of Fame coach Dick Pace at Iowa. So really, really a fun matchup here. Dan Munson, like you mentioned, was fired earlier in the week. And But it's a cool story out of the Big West, and I'm excited to see what Long Beach State does in this game. However, Arizona just too much talent.
Yeah, I mean, that was a ballsy move by the administration. It wasn't like Long Beach State had a shitty season. They have 20 wins on the year. I think they were a top 4 or 5 in the conference. And it wasn't like, I mean, like it's Dan Munson. Like, this is a legendary coach. He built Gonzaga up. He had some good teams at Minnesota, and he'd been at Long Beach State for a while. That's low class. I think to announce his firing before the conference tournament, low class in my opinion. And so it is great to see him win the Big West, stiff it to him, and then perhaps catapult him into another job somewhere. I mean, I think a lot of teams will take a chance on a guy who's been around for 20 some years and then did that. I think that's going to be kind of an FU to Long Beach State, obviously, and then also could get him a job right away. But that is our analysis there on the West region. So we are halfway through the first round. Let's go right to the South region. It is Houston facing the Lancers of Longwood. Hey, do we need to talk about this one? Is it Houston? Okay. Nichols?
It's Houston. Kelvin Sampson's done a heck of a job there. Obviously, they've made some tournament runs, and they're one of the winningest teams in recent history in college basketball. Yeah, Longwood doesn't have a fucking prayer in this game, and it pains me to say I wanted that Longwood versus Moorhead national title game. Thought that would have been fun, but there's not a snowman's chance in hell Longwood stays within 15 of this game. Yeah, huge.
A great tidbit though, Nichols. It is a great tournament. You know, it's a great tournament when Longwood and Moorhead get in. So congratulations to both of those schools. However, like you said, they probably won't be in the national championship this year facing each other, but that would be legendary. Moving along to the 8-9 matchup. This is another just firepower of an 8-9 game. And it's again against teams who are very similar in kind of style. I've gone back and forth on this one. Obviously, we are all kind of, fans of the Big Ten, being Hawkeye fans. And Nebraska is not a staple of the NCAA tournament. They barely get in, and I don't think they've ever won a game, period. So, do they have a chance to win a game here? I don't know. They looked good in the Big Ten tournament. It's a coin flip. I'm not confident on this pick. But I think A&M, I mean, this was a team who I thought at the beginning of the year was like Sweet 16, Elite 8 potential. I thought they had a good roster coming into the year. They kind of stumbled down the midway through the conference and then did just enough, I guess, to avoid the first 4. I thought they were a team that was going to be sweating it. But the committee liked them, put them in as a 9. In a coin flip, I'll go A&M, but I really want to pick Nebraska, and I'll probably be cheering for Nebraska just for Big Ten loyalties. I don't know. It could go either way. I guess I'll lean A&M, but I'm not confident at all.
I'm going to go A&M here as well. I'm happy for Fred Hoiberg. I like Fred Hoiberg. Did a great job at Iowa State. He's an Iowan. He's done a nice job in Nebraska. Anytime you get Nebraska in the national basketball tournament, you're doing a good job because, like you said, their past history has been absolutely terrible. But I got A&M. They were a bubble team until about a week ago. They were a bubble team, and they did their work in the SEC tournament. Wade Taylor can light it up. Gosh, he can score all 3 levels. And A&M's going to be up in your face, playing fast. Buzz Williams loves to press. He loves to trap all over. This is going to be a high-scoring affair, fun one to watch. I got A&M. I think they're playing some pretty good basketball right now.
I'm rolling with A&M as well. I do think Nebraska's got one of the fan favorites in the tournament, Keisei Tominaga. You don't see a lot of college basketball players coming from Japan, and he's really gotten a lot of fans this year. Lights it up from deep, but I do think A&M's too athletic for him. You mentioned Wade Taylor, one of the most prolific scorers in college basketball. Tyrese Radford's also averaging 16 points a game for Buzz Williams' group. They did sweep Kentucky this year. They've got a couple big wins, and I just think they're too athletic for Nebraska to handle. That's going to set up a really enticing Southeast Texas matchup of Houston and Texas A&M in Dallas.
All right, so I thought that was going to be kind of a contentious pick, but we are all on the same page there. Moving along, this is probably, I think everyone's, at least from what I've heard, I think this is everybody's favorite 12-5 upset. And a lot of people are going to look at this record and say, James Madison, they're 30 wins. They actually kicked off college basketball season, I think, on opening night by beating the shit out of Michigan State. So, I mean, they were a team from start to the year to where we are now who has really grabbed a lot of people's attention. I just think they're really running into a buzzsaw here. And the fact I always am hesitant to pick on everybody's favorite trendy pick. So I'm going to go with Wisconsin. I know James Madison is very talented. I'm not discrediting the Dukes here, but from Wisconsin, I think turned it around when they needed to most in the conference tournament. They were slumping after being, I think they're ranked in the top 10 for a little bit there. Then they went on a big slump and then fixed the ship again here. I think Greg Gard has a team back on track. They're a talented roster. I think this is a potential Sweet 16 team. I'm not going to take them to lose to James Madison, even though JMU, very talented, obviously 30 wins, beat Michigan State. I understand that. I like Badgers, though. I like the Badgers.
I got Wisconsin as well. Had the opportunity to watch them in person yesterday up in Minneapolis. They looked really good, and they've been playing good basketball as of late. They were trending downward until the Big Ten tournament, but Greg Gard got them going. And I think the key for Wisconsin's run here in this tournament is not AJ Storr, but Chucky Hepburn. He's an elite defender, and he's been scoring as of late, which he wasn't doing earlier in the season. He's going to be the X factor for Wisconsin down the stretch. James Madison, like you said, is a very trendy pick. Seth Davis last night said he has him to the Sweet 16. But I'm kind of like you, Mize. I don't like going with the trendy upset pick. I feel like they never happen. I feel like the upsets are always teams that no one expects. So I actually got Wisconsin here, and I think Wisconsin's going to play well and potentially beat them by 10 to 15 points. So I like Wisconsin. Greg Gard's a good coach. He's been there. He's done that. Give me the Badgers.
I'm going to go on record just starting this off. Seth Davis sounded like a fucking idiot on TV when he said he's got James Madison in the Sweet 16. They're not going to beat Wisconsin. I agree with what Carter said about Chucky Hepburn. I mean, this kid's the best on-ball defender I've ever watched. He's a freak on defense. And obviously AJ Storr, he's scored 10 plus points in their last 30 basketball games. That's an unheard of scoring streak. They were right there with Illinois. Earlier in the year in January, I had Wisconsin in my Final Four. They were playing really good ball, got ranked, I think, as high as 6. But they kind of fell off, but they got it together at the right time, made it to the Big Ten championship game, and I've got them winning their first round game.
Yeah, you're right, Nichols. I think you got to be, and this is in sports in general. I think a lot of these people either A, don't know what the hell they're talking about, or B, are there to be like a propagandist and debate you into taking something that's not going to happen. I think Seth Davis saying he thinks James Madison's going to Sweet 16. He either A, doesn't know ball, which I don't think is the case. I think he's just trying to sucker people into taking them. And like I said, these trendy bets, I'm a little hesitant to take them too. So, and I think rightfully so. I mean, I don't see this happening at all. And like Nichols said, Seth taking them to the Sweet 16, I think, is the proof in the pudding. Stay away from James Madison. I think that's a faux upset right there. Now let's move it down to the 4-13 matchup. Now I'm always a big America East fan. I like this conference, and it was the America East that took down Virginia in the 16 versus 1 matchup. Duke. Now I think Nichols. I've heard you say I don't think they are led by a very qualified or a talented head coach. And so I am going to go with an upset here that no one's talking about. So that checks off a box there. And it's like from a conference who's pulled off a big upset in recent years. So I'm going to go with Vermont and an upset here. Now, Duke obviously has Filipowski, and Duke could probably say they face Wisconsin, could probably beat them and go to the Sweet 16. But I'm not afraid of losing to Duke. I think Wisconsin will beat them anyways, should they face off. So I'm going to go with the Catamounts with an upset.
Yeah, I think Vermont's capable of it, but I do have Duke in this game. I think Coach K probably sat John Shire down this week and said, "John, you kind of lost the program. What are you doing here?" John Shire, great recruiter. I'll be the first to admit that. He's a hell of a recruiter, but he's fucking terrible in big games. I think he's a clown. I think he started on third base. Duke's a dirty program. They're arrogant. They're cocky. Filipowski's he's a bitch, and he's just tripping. He's all hurt, walking off the floor after the court storming. Well, he's magically fine 2 days later to play. Then he's tripping Harrison Ingram, acting like, oh, I don't know what happened. Sit down, big fella. You're really not that good, and you're gonna win your first round game. I am picking you, but I don't think they're making a deep run in this tournament. I don't see this team really doing it. They got swept by Carolina. They obviously, the moment was too big in those games for them. And if you're gonna make a run and win a national championship or be on that level to contend, you got to win those type of games. And they didn't show that this year. But I am taking them in the round one.
I got to go Duke here, but I love the pick mice. I love the Vermont upset. I think Duke is vulnerable. Lost to North Carolina at home, the last regular season game of the year, and then got beat by a really hot NC State team in the conference tournament. Like you guys both mentioned, I don't think John Shire is what the Duke fans were necessarily hoping for, especially these first couple years. He's got a lot to prove this tournament. If they do get beat by Vermont, there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered, and he could potentially be on the hot seat a little bit. They don't accept losing at Duke very well. So I am going to go Duke here, but I love the pick mice. I think Vermont's got a really good opportunity here to make this interesting, and I personally would love to see Vermont win this game. Like you said, the America East is a great conference, and Vermont's had a good program. They've been in the tournament a couple times the past 4 or 5 years. So they're a proven program, and wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if they make this a competitive game.
I know it's tough to pick against Duke. Here's my thinking. John Becker's been the coach of Vermont for a long time. He's gotten to the tournament 4, I think, out of the last 7 years. And the years that they didn't go to the tournament, I still think they clinched a share of at least clinch a share of the regular season or won the regular season. So they're a top dog in the America East every year. I think their time has finally come. Give me John Becker, but I understand Duke, Filipowski. Personally, I think this would be the ultimate upset. Like Josh said, yeah, fucking Filipowski, just another line of just a fucking spoon-fed, white, rich Duke boy who thinks he's better. I mean, Christian Laettner started this whole trend of the Duke players, but Christian Laettner can kick your ass. It's gotten kind of a little wishy-washy in recent years. You have Jack White, guys like that. He's like, you can't do this. Filipowski flopped and faked his way through an injury on a court storm after he got his ass beat. Then the next game he's doing windmill dunks and tripping people. So fuck him. Fuck Duke. I want Vermont to win this game. But we do have the Blue Devils as their official pick. Moving on. The 6-11 matchup is Texas Tech and NC State. NC State wins 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament. That's the first time that's ever been done in the ACC. And credit them, man. It took a lot, too, to get there. Obviously, that buzzer beater off of a missed free throw. Then in the tournament game, I'm like, okay, they're finally going to run out of steam. The spread was like 9.5. I'm like, North Carolina is just going to take it to them. It's not anything the Wolfpack are doing wrong. It's just I feel like they're going to run out of gas, and they didn't. And so now it's like, hey, what do they do here? Do they keep this trend going? And if I'm a smart guy, I wouldn't pick against them because I picked against them against UNC, and I got burned. So if I'm smart, I'll pick them to win again. I don't think I'm going to, though. I think Texas Tech is just too talented. This is a buzzsaw team they're running into. Texas Tech, credit that program. Obviously, they've gone through a lot the past 3 seasons. I mean, with Chris Beard leaving, then Mark Adams gets into trouble. So it's like this might be a team that might take a little bit of a couple years to rebound. And no, they fucking handled their own in the Big 12 and then get in the conference tournament too. So give me Tech in this one. I really like this NC State team. Another great story, like we mentioned. And again, like I said, if I'm smart, I won't pick against them. But I think I have to in this
I
one.
got Texas Tech as well. Former Iowa guard Joe Toussaint had a really nice year there. This year, I'm happy for him. I was always a fan of him when he played at Iowa. Gave the Hawks great effort. Oftentimes, gave them a spark they needed in a lot of games. So I'm glad he's having success at Texas Tech. Love NC State though. Super happy they made the tournament and won the conference tournament. Kevin Keats buys himself another 2 years, which is awesome. He was kind of on the. There's rumblings he was on the hot seat before that conference tournament. I think if they would have lost, especially to Louisville that first day, he would have been out. But in his contract, if he wins the conference tournament, he gets a 2-year extension. So he earned himself one. DJ Burns is awesome to watch. He's a tank, kind of plays below the rim, but he's given the Wolfpack some energy. I think this one might be closer than people think, but I got Texas Tech. They've kind of quietly been really good this year. They've been kind of an under the radar Big 12 team this year, but they're good. They're really good. I think they got a potential to make a nice run here. So I got Texas Tech.
Yeah, Texas Tech's going to win this game. Pop Isaacs, Joe Toussaint, really good guard play. Grant McCausland's done a hell of a job in his first year in West Texas. And those Red Raiders, man, they're a scary matchup. They're moving on.
Great pick, fellas. Great pick. Also, again, shout out Joe Toussaint. Obviously, former Hawkeye, got to the tournament with us. Then goes to West Virginia. Goes to the tournament with West Virginia. Bob Huggins obviously gets in some hot water. He's gone. Decides to go to Texas Tech for his final year. And I think he has the Red Raiders poised to make a run. I like that pick. NC State, they're only 5-point dogs. So they're getting their props. And I think that's a pretty about accurate line. If Texas Tech wins, it's going to be pretty close like that. 5-6 point game, maybe a 4-point game. Maybe NC State can even cover that. So I like the Wolfpack to keep that thing close. They're playing good ball. Like you said, DJ Burns is a monster down low. He was cooking in that semifinal game, and even the final game. They kind of just rode through him, and he did not disappoint. But that semifinal game, man, he went to the bench for a little bit. Then they took him off. Great move, by the way, for Keats to bring him back off the bench. He scored like 7 or 8 points in a row. Then they tried to double team him. He had a nice bounce pass. I love watching this guy play. I'm looking forward to that game. Thursday night, 8:40, perfectly timed game by the committee. A lot of eyes are going to be on that game. That's in between Stanford and also Tennessee, St. Peter. So all eyes are going to be on that game, and rightfully so. I think that's a perfectly timed tip-off game. Moving things along, though, in the region, we have the 3 versus 14 seed Kentucky. Now, Kentucky they're kind of almost at a crossroads here. I think they kind of have to make a run. I mean, you can't fire John Calipari no matter what happens. Even if they lose, I don't think you can fire Coach Cal, but the fan base is pissed off. I mean, it's obviously a fiery fan base. They have ultimate high expectations. I think he did get him to the Elite Eight like 5 years ago. Like, he has still a pretty good track record. I don't think they needs to be fired, but if they lose this game or maybe even lose in the second round, it's going to be a long offseason, I think, for Coach Cal. And this is, I think, a tough matchup. Oakland, I mean, they came out of the Horizon League, who a lot of these mid-major conferences, I actually watched a lot of this conference. I think there's good ball played in the Horizon. Youngstown State was good this year. Purdue, Fort Wayne, Milwaukee, Cleveland State. It's good ball on a regular basis. I think Oakland can keep this thing close. I'm not going to go with the official upset here just because I've at times really liked what I've seen from Kentucky this year. Kentucky was a team before the brackets came out. I'm like, I think this could be a Sweet 16 or maybe further, a team that goes further than the Sweet 16. But I think they kind of have a tough draw here, kind of in the region that they're at. So I don't think they'll go super far, but I do have them winning this game. But I think it's gonna be a close game. I kind of like Oakland to keep this interesting.
Yeah, I'm going with Kentucky as well. Oakland has the potential to keep it close, but I just think Kentucky's firepower is going to be way too much for the Golden Grizzlies. I think you look at their freshman stars, Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard, they're really fun to watch. But then you got senior guard Antonio Reeves leading them in scoring. He brings it all together for them. I really like this Kentucky team. And, you know, as I've matured, I've become more of a Coach Calipari fan. I still don't like him, but he's an interesting coach, and he's done a really good job at Kentucky. Obviously, their fan base is fed up with them not really making any deep runs in the last 4 or 5 years. I don't think they've been to the Elite Eight since 2017 when they lost that heartbreaking game to North Carolina. But that I think this is a team that has the capability of doing it. I do think they're going to be a trendy Final Four pick, but I do like them getting past Oakland and setting up I think could be a really fun matchup with Texas Tech.
Yeah, I'm all over Kentucky here. I really like this Kentucky team. They're young, but really, really talented. I mean, Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd are both probably going to be top 5 picks in this year's draft. And I can't think of 2 guys together who you'd want handling the ball for you in this tournament late games. I mean, they're going to make plays. They're going to shoot it well. They're going to score. And like Josh said, Antonio Reeves is a really, really good player too. He's kind of quietly leading that team in scoring, and he's shooting great percentages. And like Meiser said, I mean, this is kind of not necessarily make it or break for Cal, but he's been in a drought here in the NCAA tournament. Coach Cal, he used to be known for making runs in the NCAA tournament. He was always there in the second, third weekend. It's been a while. I mean, you look at 2 years ago, they get beat by St. Peter's, the 15 seed. It kind of seems like this year, Coach Cal's got to get it together. It might be kind of destiny in a way, where this might be the team that kind of gets Kentucky back on track in the NCAA tournament. So I got them winning today, and I'm kind of rooting for this Kentucky team. I like their makeup. I think they're fun to watch. They scored a ton. They play a really fast pace. They're going to be too much for Oakland, and hopefully Kentucky can sustain a run here this year.
All right, so we're in agreement with Kentucky moving on. That brings us to Florida versus the winner of the first 4 game. And in our bracket, we had Colorado winning that one. So we have Colorado and Florida on 3:30 p.m. tip-off Friday afternoon. That's going to be a good afternoon game to get that kind of that night slate going. Oof. Now, Florida is a team who I think is very talented and capable of making a run, but then they suffered a big injury, obviously a very gruesome injury in the tournament championship game yesterday to their starting center, who was, I think, a transfer from Marshall. And that, I don't know. They lost a lot of momentum right when that happened. It was like right away in the game, and they lost a lot of momentum in that game. So I'm interested to see if that affects them or if that they can kind of turn that into a rallying point. I don't see them losing the first round here, but I don't know. I thought it was a team that could go on a run kind of in the tournament, and now with that injury, I don't know. It just seems like I'm not as sold on them now. But I will pick them to get past Colorado. But I think that could be an interesting game. I think it'd be an interesting one. I'm not totally sold on Florida. I would not be surprised if Colorado actually wins that one. But I've been high in Florida for so long, even with that injury, I think I'll still rock.
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to shout out my good friend Richie Rosaboom from Jacksonville, Florida. Big Florida fan. It's great to see Florida back in the NCAA tournament. It really is. We're old enough to remember the days of Billy Donovan in Florida. Just awesome teams, fun to watch. We're a mainstay. Made a couple Final Fours, won a couple of national championships. The NCAA tournament's better when Florida's in it. I'm glad they're back. Todd Golden's did a phenomenal job kind of bringing that program back to what it's used to being. I got Florida here. I think they're playing really good basketball, and I like their team. Obviously, lost one of their big men in the conference championship game, which is tough. But I think they're going to rally around one another and get this first win against Colorado, who is playing in the playing game. But I got Florida.
I'm going with Colorado, actually. I think with Florida losing their center with that injury, Micah Hanlington, he's big, and I think it's going to be tough for them to have an answer for Eddie Lampkin now. Eddie Lampkin's he's huge, and he moves guys around in the post, but Florida obviously more than capable of winning this game. Todd Golden's done a heck of a job. However, I do have Colorado. I think they're playing good ball right now, and I think Colorado moves on.
I do think it's gonna be a tight game. I would not be surprised if Colorado does end up winning that game. I hope Colorado does win the first 4 game, and that is a matchup. That's gonna be a damn fine game to start off that slate there on Friday. Moving along here, pencil Florida in. Moving along, the last game here in this region, we have the 2 versus 15, Marquette versus Western Kentucky. Hilltoppers have gotten the tournament in the past. Josh, unfortunately, knows all about that one. But I don't know if they pose any threat to Marquette. I know Marquette went out early last year, but that was against a tough Michigan State team. I'm very high on Marquette. I don't see any shenanigans here.
Yeah, Marquette's going to win this game. Big thing for them, getting Tyler Kolek healthy. Get him healthy, get him as close to 100% as you can have him, and you got a chance to make a deep run. I think Cam Jones is fantastic. Oso Ighodaro, David Joplin plays his role phenomenally. I hate on Marquette a lot, but they do have a really good team, and they play a fun style of basketball. However, they do have 6 people on the floor at all times. I mean, Shaka Smart is he's a sideshow. He's all about himself, and I don't like that, but he's an extra defender on the floor, but he's won in March, and they're going to get past this Western Kentucky team. I do have PTSD from Western Kentucky. Obviously, Tyler Rogers shot against Drake back in '08. I was a mess after that for a while, just a little innocent kindergartner. And that was kind of the year I really fell in love with basketball. My dad and I had season tickets to Drake, and we went to like every game they had at home. So I was obviously a big Drake fan, and to have their dream season ended on a 30-foot pull-up contested three at the buzzer is heartbreaking in itself. And when you're a 6-year-old kid that's really starting to love the game, and that's how your favorite team at that time season ends, it's just like shit. So yeah, Western Kentucky, they've got spunk in the tournament, but I do have Marquette.
Yeah, I got Marquette here as well. The key storyline to watch here, obviously, is Tyler Kolek. Will he play, and is he healthy enough to lead the Golden Eagles on a run here in the NCAA tournament? I think they're more than capable with Tyler Kolek. Without him, I think they're extremely vulnerable. He's kind of what makes them go. He's their primary ball handler, and he's the leader of that team. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, Marquette, it would have been interesting to see how they would have finished the year with a healthy Tyler Kolek. That Big East Conference tournament game against Villanova was an awesome game to watch. The buzzer beater that everybody thought counted ended up not at the buzzer. Had to go to overtime. They end up winning. But it would have been interesting to see if they would have lost that game, if they would have stayed on that 2 seed line. But they ended up winning the game. I think they beat Providence the next game in the semifinals, I want to say, and ended up making the conference championship. So they got a couple wins. I like Marquette a lot. If they have Tyler Kolek, that's a big question mark. They're going to roll against Western Kentucky with or without him. But hopefully he's healthy, and because I think Marquette's more than capable of making a run.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's what makes them go. He's the point guard. He's their leader. I think the fact that they held him out the Big East tournament, I think that was just 100%. He's ready to go for the tournament, and he might not even have to play a lot in this first round game. I just think that's a team that was destined to make a run last year, but they just had an awful second round matchup. So I'm high on them. I think they can go back. I think this is the loaded roster. I mean, like if you just go strictly from looking at the roster as a whole, I think it's like a top 5 roster in college basketball. I don't care what they've done. Just looking at the players, I love this. I love this team. On paper, they look great, and I think they can finally get it done. Shaka Smart has had a rocky last almost like decade. It doesn't really matter what team he's at. It's been a struggle. So that does make me a little hesitant, but I think that also at the same time that gives me some optimism for him to make a big run because we do know he's a great coach. I think he's due for a run. So I don't see Western Kentucky posing any threats here. The 1-16 matchup, we'll just say, do we have Purdue losing or winning again in the second year? I have them winning.
They're going to win. I don't really see them losing this game. Big Maple, Zach Edey. Yeah, I don't even think there's really much to talk about on this.
Purdue is going to win. They're going to exercise their demons from years past. I think this is the year where they make the Final Four. I really do. It's destiny for them. They've been upset too many times. They're going to get it done. Not to mention they just have a phenomenal team. And Matt Painter is a top 5 coach in the country. I mean, some may disagree with me, but I mean, numbers don't lie. He hasn't necessarily won the amount of games in the NCAA tournament yet. That one would maybe hope for him, but gosh, he's the epitome of consistency at Purdue. They're always good. They're always in the NCAA tournament. Purdue's going to make a run this year. They're going to have no problems in this game.
I agree. I don't think this year they're going to have any Fairleigh Dickinson problems. Moving on to the 8-9 matchup, Utah State TCU. I thought TCU was another team that was. I thought they were going to be about a 6 seed, and they fall to the 8 seed line, and they face a scrappy TCU team who never really seems to go on a run, but they're kind of like a quiet, like staple of the tournament, led by Jimmy Dixon, who has experience before TCU at Pitt. Solid coach. This is going to be a tough game to pick. Personally, as a Mountain West guy, I want to take Utah State. I don't know if I can, though. I go back and forth on this one. It just seems, I don't know. I think Utah State is better, but it's another game like that Dayton game where I feel like if I pick Utah State, I feel like the other team's going to win. So I will go with Utah State, but I would not be surprised if TCU wins. And maybe that is a better pick. I don't know. I'll let you guys go and give your analysis. I will slightly lean Utah State, though.
My pick's going to make the kids on Bluebonnet Circle happy. Shout out Fort Worth, Sammy J, Carl Bergholt, a lot of quality kids down at Texas Christian. I am going to take the Horned Frogs, Emmanuel Miller, Micah Peavy. I mean, you had Jameer Nelson Jr. into the mix. Jamie Dixon, I think he's an underrated coach, and TCU is going to roll in this game. I do think Utah State's got a good team this year, but I just think, I mean, TCU, they beat Houston, they beat Baylor, they were right there with Iowa State one of the times they played. I like the Horned Frogs to advance, and yeah, so congrats to those kids in purple. They're going to be moving on to play Purdue.
I'm going to take Utah State here. I got the Aggies. I've watched TCU, I think, twice this year, and they've played really bad both times. I know it's just coincidence, but I can't get that picture out of my head. I watched them play Houston in the Big 12 Conference Tournament, and they didn't have a point until like 11 minutes left in the first half. I can't get that image out of my head. I got to go Utah State here. They've consistently been good, not just this year, but the past few years. They've been a staple in the tournament out of the Mountain West. Haven't had the success they've probably wanted in the national tournament yet. I think this is the year where they win one game and potentially another. You never know. Purdue's been vulnerable in years past, as we all know. So I like Utah State. I got the Aggies moving on.
Yeah, again, that's a tight one. TCU nearly took down Arizona, I think, 2 years ago in the tournament. So it was almost like they got to the Sweet 16 that year, but Tommy Lloyd almost went out in the first round and second round 2 years in a row. So that's a scrappy TCU team. Like I said, Jamie Dixon's been there before. I went back and forth on it, but I think Utah State, is the pick. So we'll push them through. But again, I would not be surprised if that flip-flops. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Also a late-night Friday game, 8:55 tip-off. Again, perfectly timed game there. I think it's going to be a good game late at night to watch. We got the 5-12 matchup, and this is another interesting 5-12 matchup. We had the same thing on the other side of the bracket with St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. Now you have Gonzaga, another West Coast Conference team as a 5 seed, facing another very trendy 12 seed conference tournament champ. Gonzaga facing up against McNeese State, who's coached by Will Wade, who took over VCU after Shaka Smart left, then went to LSU, had them kind of rolling, then they got into all kind of recruiting hell. They had to ship him out, rightfully so. He was doing a lot of damage. So, but McNeese State said, hey, we've never done anything ever. We'll take you in. And year one, man, they have 30 wins. They rolled through the Southland Conference. Who knows? I'm guessing he's probably a one-and-done stint there. I'm sure there's going to be a big school knocking on his door that will probably forgive him for his past mistakes. I don't foresee him being at McNeese State much longer with the job he's done. Now, the question is, do they win? Does McNeese State beat Gonzaga? Gonzaga is in a weird spot because compared to some of their other teams, they are kind of like an overrated team. They're not very good compared to some of those other teams. But at the same time, I'm kind of looking at them. I think they could potentially be underrated. I don't want to foreshadow a little bit. I don't want to foreshadow too much, but I think where they're like slated in the bracket, I think it's kind of beneficial for them. So I will go with Gonzaga to win this game. I'm not going to buy into the McNeese hype. I've seen them play quite a bit because I bet on them a bunch. They cover the spread a lot. I will say that. They did kind of do me some favors during the regular season in the Southland. So I have seen them play a lot, but I don't think they have the firepower for Gonzaga. Gonzaga beat Kentucky not too long ago in a non-conference game. They did take the lumps against St. Mary's in the regular season, but then wrote the ship in the conference tournament and kind of smacked them around a little bit in that game. So I like what I'm seeing with Gonzaga. Mark Few, I'm not going to pick him to lose to Will Wade and McNeese. I know it's a trendy pick. I know McNeese is good, 30 wins. It's nothing to shake a stick at, but I'm going with the Zags personally.
I'm gonna fade you here, Mize. I think this is one of those times I'm taking an upset. I like Will Wade. You know what do they say? If you're not cheating, you're not trying. So I've got Will Wade and the Cowboys moving on. I'm kind of like Carter with TCU. I watched Gonzaga in their West Coast Conference final against St. Mary's, and they didn't pass the eye test for me. Obviously, they've got big wins. They won at Kentucky in late January, early February, an oddly scheduled game. But I just this Gonzaga team is weird to me. They're more than capable of losing by 15 to McNeese, but they're also capable of going to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they have talent. And Mark Few, I don't think he's ever going to win a national championship, but I mean, he is a good coach and he knows how to win in the tournament. I think last year, obviously, they still had Drew Timme, but they weren't like as loved nationally as like by the polls, and they just didn't seem that they were as good as they had been in previous years, and they still went to the Elite Eight. So obviously Gonzaga is capable of going as deep as the Final Four, but I do have McNeese State moving on. Will Wade, the American gangster.
I'm with Josh here. I got McNeese State. Will Wade's just done a phenomenal job there in year one. It's cool to see him kind of rebound after that disaster he left in Baton Rouge at LSU. But he's gonna be elsewhere next year. He's gonna be coaching somebody else's team. You know, he was just using this as a stepping stone to get another big job. But 3 wins on McNeese State's schedule that stood out to me was 1, Michigan, who was terrible this year, but still a Big Ten team. 2, VCU, who was in the A-10 championship game, who a lot of people thought would win that conference tournament and make the tournament. And 3, UAB, Andy Kennedy's UAB team, who is a tournament team right now. So those are 3 pretty quality wins for a McNeese team, who obviously not going to play the best of schedules, but they can only play who they have on their schedule, and they won those games. No matter what level of Division I basketball you're at, it's really hard to win 30 games, and they did that. So I got McNeese State here.
It's gonna be a battle. I'm really excited for this one. When these two teams like popped up, I'm like, wow, this is dynamite right here. I love this. I love this matchup. And again, that's another night game, perfectly timed game. I don't like a lot of the seating the selection committee did. I don't know who is in charge of. Probably not the selection committee. It's probably the NCAA. I think the NCAA did the timing right. The times are perfect. I think they got these games nailed just down to a T. So I'm excited for that game on a Friday night. So we do have McNeese State. I think that's the first upset we have going through. So hats off to McNeese State. Will Wade is moving on. We have another kind of a game here, which is a trendy upset pick. Kansas, the 4 seed versus Samford, the 13. Samford, I think, is 29-5, so nearly 30 wins. Kansas a little banged up. So a lot of people are kind of wondering what to do with this game. I think this is another example of a faux upset. Trendy pick. I think a lot of people are going to pick Samford, and nobody loves to pick against Bill Self and Kansas more than me. I despise Kansas. I despise Bill Self. I don't like that program. I like to pick against them any chance I get, but to be honest with you, I don't see Samford winning this game. Even if there is a little bit of injury problems, I think Kansas gets by Samford. I think this is just a lot of smoke and no flame here. Samford has never won a tournament game. I just don't see Bill Self going down in the round of 64 to Samford, even with a team that's kind of banged up. Now, they might keep it close due to some of those injuries. I'm not saying it's going to be a shellacking, but I do like Kansas.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against Kansas. However, I'm going to do it. This is a homer pick for me. Shout out Nathan Johnson, Samford Bulldog, redshirt senior. I'm excited to watch him in the big dance. But yeah, Samford, they're averaging 86 a game, I want to say. They're almost 90 points. They're running gun. Kansas, like we said, they're banged up and they're vulnerable. And I think this is the most vulnerable Kansas team we've seen in a long time. I mean, on paper, yeah, they should get past Samford, and they should get probably to the Sweet 16 if they play McNeese State in the round of 32. but I am going to take Samford, and that's going to set up Samford versus McNeese State for me. Yeah, it's hard to pick against Bill Self in the round of 64, but I think this is the year he gets beat.
I like the pick, Josh. Sanford's having an incredible year. I just can't bet against Bill Self. I think they were smart holding out McCullough and Dickinson in the conference tournament. I think Bill Self realized there's bigger fish to fry here. And, I don't think the committee really valued the conference tournament like we once thought they did. I mean, look at what Iowa State did. They piss pounded Houston by 30, and they still got a 2 seed in by far the toughest region in this bracket. So I think they were really smart holding those guys out. If those guys are able to play even remotely close to full strength, I don't think they're going to have any problems. Hunter Dickinson and his size is going to be a big issue, and Kevin McCullough is a really good player. And I'm a big DeJuan Harris fan. I think he's one of the best true point guards in the country. He's not going to blow you away with the scoring, but as far as getting Kansas into their offense, getting others involved, and he's a great defender as well. He's one of the best in the country at that point guard spot. I got Kansas. This is a popular upset pick with Kansas struggles. This is one of those where I'm just like, I can't go with the trend here. I got to go Kansas, Bill Self. And the Jayhawks, I think they got a chance to maybe quietly make a run. You never know. Maybe this is what they needed to be counted out and be kind of under the radar. Kansas is always typically a favorite to make the Final Four. They aren't this year. Maybe that helps them. Maybe they use that to their advantage. We'll see. But I got Kansas.
Yes, I got an article pulled up here. Bill Self said yesterday Dickinson has been doing great. He's practiced the last 2 days, although it was non-contact. But they said they've done a lot of stuff for them. I think he's going to be ready to go. They said McCullough hadn't been practicing though, so he's a little bit more doubtful. It sounds like. I think both of these guys are ready to go though. I think it's kind of the same situation like Marquette faced. Like you said, perhaps these coaches, I mean, they've got to have some kind of inside information. They probably knew they don't need these guys. It probably is not going to be in their best self-interest to risk an injury in the conference tournament to maybe move up one spot. There was no team that ran the table in the conference tournament that like jumped up a bunch of seed line or jumped up a seed line or anything. So I think these guys knew what they were doing, especially these veteran coaches. I'm not too concerned about the injuries, although it is a little weird. McCullough's not practicing. So it sounds like he's a little bit more dicey, but no, I like Kansas moving on. I do like the pick though, Nichols. I'm glad we didn't all I'm glad we all didn't pick Kansas because fuck them. Moving on to the 6-11 matchup, South Carolina and Oregon. I'll let one of you two guys take the lead in this one. I think I wanna wait to see what you guys say before I make a final pick here.
Carter mentioned our good buddy Richie Rosenblum earlier, being from Florida. He's got a weird allegiance to South Carolina. I know he knows a lot of kids going there. I've met some of these kids via Twitter or X, if you will. The mayor, for one, John Mann, shout out to him. But I am going to go with Oregon. They're playing their best ball right now. Dana Altman's a damn good ball coach, and he's got a healthy team. I don't know if South Carolina is going to have an answer for N'Faly Dante underneath. I've got the Mighty Ducks on to the round of 32.
I got Oregon as well. I love that they won their conference tournament. I was hoping they get it. I'm a huge Dana Altman guy. I like what he's done at Creighton. I like what he's done at Oregon. He's a great coach. And like Josh mentioned, N'Faly Dante is healthy. He's playing at full strength, and this makes a huge difference. It's a completely different Oregon team when he's healthy and playing. Dana Altman, he's always going to have talent. It's just a matter if he can put it all together and get them aligned. I think they're playing their best basketball at the right time of the year. I think Oregon is a candidate to make a little run here, maybe win 2 or 3 games in this tournament. I haven't been high on South Carolina all year. They do have some good wins. But I don't know. I think Lamont Paris has done a nice job this year there. They're back in the national tournament. But I'm just not super high on them. I like Oregon. I think their firepower is going to give South Carolina troubles.
Excellent pick, fellas. Excellent pick. I am 100% with you. I wanted to wait because I didn't know if I was going to have to make a tie-breaking pick or not. And I wanted to use that tie-breaking pick on Oregon. That's not the case. I got the sweatshirt rocking here. Dana Altman, I want to pull it up. just to make sure I got the numbers right. I saw a great stat on Twitter/X today about someone had a thread of the coaching, some of the NCAA tournament coaches and their tournament against the spread all-time records. Let me find this here. I got it right here. So some of these teams, Tommy Lloyd in 4 tournament games is 0-4 against the spread. Rick Barnes, all-time 21. Mark Few, 20-30. Okay. Steve Alford, 6-11. Matt Painter, 18-13. So those are some very good coaches with not the best record against the spread. Dana Altman, 15-6-1 against the spread, all time in the NCAA tournament. Give me Oregon, who is rocking to win this game. Like I said, and I think he did this a couple years ago too, where they needed to get in through the conference tournament to even have a chance. They did that. I forget when that was. That was not too long ago where they did that. They did it again this year. Michi Johnson is a stud for South Carolina, but if he's not going, they don't have a lot of other guys that can really take charge. And in the SEC tournament, Michi Johnson in 2 games had 9 combined points. They're lucky they won the first round game. I'm not high on South Carolina. They are a great story, though. I think they were projected last or near the bottom of the conference, and they handled business and really opened a lot of eyes. So I'm not discrediting them, but it's just a hell of a matchup and a hell of a coach to go against in the first round. So great pick there across the board. Oregon moves on. And then we have the 3-14 matchup. Creighton went to the Elite 8 last year, a great run. Can they do it again? Their first test is Akron, the champs of the MAC. I'm not a big fan. I wasn't a big fan of the MAC this year. Akron, I think, was the best team from start to finish, but I'm still not super impressed with them. They do have some tournament experience. I think John Gross was their coach there before. I think he was there, and then he went to Illinois. I think he's back as their head coach. So they do have some experience with him, but I don't see an upset happening here. I think it could be close, though. I think this one could be pretty close. I think Creighton might be tested. And it's a day game, which makes me a little more nervous. But I will take Creighton, but I think this could be a close game.
I got Creighton as well. Greg McDermott's done a phenomenal job there. Baylor Shireman's been really, really good this year. He can do it all. He can score it. He can pass it. He can rebound. Trey Alexander and Ryan Kalkbrenner are also really good players who have a lot of tournament experience. If you recall last year's game against San Diego State, there was a controversial foul call late in that game where Creighton could have potentially gotten into the Final Four. So I think they're definitely coming into this tournament with an attitude that they're ready to get their revenge. They feel like they're capable of making a run here. I got Creighton. I don't think they're going to have any problems with Akron, and look for Creighton to be capable of making a deep run in this tournament.
Yeah, I don't see anything too crazy going on here. Creighton, Greg McDermott, they got screwed over last year. I think they're poised to make a run. I think they got the roster to do it. Kalkbrenner's going to be a really tough matchup for any mid-major opponent they play, just with his size and his length. But they're a really good team and they're well coached. I like Creighton to have a chance to make a deep.
All right, so Creighton moves on. And then we have a 7-10 matchup. Texas takes on the winner of the first 4 matchup, which is also, I think this got to be the first time in the first 4 era where the first 4, like the last teams in, were a 10 seed. Obviously, that's due to all of the bid thieves that came in. Usually that's an 11 seed or a 12 seed. So it's interesting to see them as the 10s. We picked Colorado State to win that game tomorrow night. So that is our hypothetical matchup, Texas versus Colorado State. And Texas was a team who I think a lot of people thought could go far and do good things in both the regular season and in the postseason. They kind of slumped in the Big 12. I was kind of underwhelmed with the amount of talent that they had and how they performed. I'm starting to think Rodney Terry's not a great coach. I know he kind of, he took him on a little bit of a run last year. I'm not super sold on him. That whole thing against the UCF game where he started freaking out against UCF guys, giving them the horns down, kind of really started to turn my opinion on him. So I have Colorado State beating Texas. Texas lost to Abilene Christian. It just seemed like a program that's, I know they made a Sweet 16 last year. Still, though, I think they're going to lose. I don't think Rodney Terry's a good coach. Give me the Rams.
I got the Braves as well. I don't think they would beat anybody else on the 7 seed line other than Texas. I'm with you, Mize. I think Ronnie Terry was a terrible hire for Texas. Last year, he had all of Chris Beard's guys, and he had coached them for a good part of the first half of the season. So they were under the influence of Chris Beard, who's a great coach. I mean, he's won everywhere he's gone. I don't think Ronnie Terry is going to get it done here. I think next year Texas is going to be really bad, and he's going to be on the hot seat, potentially out of there. So I got Nico Medved and the Rams. Josh, that probably pains you to hear, but just because they're playing Texas, not high on this Texas team.
Yeah, this is a game I looked at Texas is going to lose, whether it's Virginia or Colorado State. I think Rodney Terry's one of the most – I think that was a premature hire. I think they botched that hire, and I think he's going to be out in the next couple of years. But, yeah, I mean, Texas has some talent. Dylan DeSue, Tyrese Hunter. I mean, Dylan Mitchell coming off the bench, he's a freak. But I do think they're going to lose this game. I haven't really been impressed with them all year, and I think they kind of got their seat because of the big brand of Texas and the history they've got. So I do think they're a tournament team, obviously, but I have Colorado State moving on. If that's who they play, pains me, but Nico Medved's going to be in the round of 32.
All right, so we are all agreement there on what many people thought probably could be a contentious pick. So I like that. We're all in agreement. The Rams are going to the round of 32. That brings us to our last matchup of the first round, the 2 seed versus the 15 seed. Tennessee, the 2, and St. Peter's, the 15 seed. All right, so we know what happened the last time St. Peter's was a 15 seed, and they ended up making the Elite 8 that year. That was only 2 years ago. Do they have potential to do it again? I say no. I got Tennessee, Rick Barnes winning this game, even though they looked awful in the SEC tournament. I think Rick Barnes, I used to love to give him props, but in the tournament, both conference tournament and the NCAA tournament, doesn't really seem to produce. I do think they win this game, though.
Yeah, I got Tennessee. I don't think they're going to have any issues. We're not going to see St. Peter's go on that magical run like they did 2 years ago as a 15 seed. And Mize, I'm with you, man. Rick Barnes has struggled in the national tournament. He's struggled in conference tournament, but he's one of my favorite coaches in the country. He's a class act. I don't think Texas should have ever fired him. I think that's the worst thing they did for that basketball program was get rid of Rick Barnes. And he's done a phenomenal job at Tennessee. They got a really good team. Dalton Connect is one of the best players in the country. And I got Tennessee rolling here. I really am rooting for Tennessee this tournament. I want Rick Barnes to make his first Final Four.
I really like watching Tennessee. I think losing in the SEC tournament was really good for them. I think that's really going to propel them to play hard and, take care of business on the defensive side of things as well as the offensive side of things. Dalton Connect's a stud. Zakai Ziegler gets him into their offense. And we're forgetting about the most experienced guy on the floor, Santiago Vescovi. Fun to watch. The announcers love him. He's played worldwide basketball and, really excited to see what Rick Barnes does with this Tennessee team. I've got him moving on.
All right, so that is every first 4 pick and round of 64 pick for you right there. Great analysis, boys. Now we're into the round of 32. I think, Nichols, you have a pickleball game we got to get to, so we can speed things up as we see fit. Let's go to the second round, though. Back to the East region. We have UConn facing Northwestern. This would be a hell of a matchup in the second round, and I think Boo Buie will do enough to keep this thing close. I think this could be a more interesting game than people would think, but I do have UConn beating Northwestern in that second round.
Yeah, I'm with you. Danny Hurley's going to get them through to the next round. They're just deep and they're really good. I don't see Northwestern winning this game without Ty Berry. Obviously, Boo Buie's got a chance to really, keep things close and lead Northwestern on a special run. But I just think this is a really tough matchup for them. Chris Collins, really good in the first round. He's never won in the second round. So I think that trend is going to continue this year, and we see Connecticut to the Sweet 16.
Yep, UConn's going to win this game. Northwestern, great year for them. Chris Collins, hell of a job. If they win the first tournament game this year, that'd be a huge success for them, especially with the injuries they've had. But I don't see UConn having any issues here. Just too talented. too well coached. They got the pedigree right now. They got it rolling. They're going to win.
All right, so we have the defending champs in the Sweet 16, getting past Northwestern. Great run for Northwestern. Chris Collins, second round berth, but they end there. We have the 5 versus 4 San Diego State, runners up from last year against Auburn, the SEC champ. I'm a Mountain West guy through and through, but in this case, I would go with Auburn. I'm taking Auburn, the 4 seed here. And they could run away with this thing too. I hate to admit that. But still, runners up and then going back to the second round, back-to-back years, I think that's good for the Aztecs, but I do like Auburn.
I'm with you. I think Auburn's going to win. I think it's going to get ugly in the second half. When you look at Auburn, Johnny Broome, Jalen Williams, Bruce Pearl's done a hell of a job building this team. I said it when we talk about the first round. They're extremely deep. They're built for this tournament. And, yeah, I think they're going to get to the Sweet 16 without blinking it.
I'm all over Auburn on this one. San Diego State's not going to be able to score enough points to stay in it. Bruce Pearl's been really, really good in the tournament, especially at Auburn. I have them going to the Sweet 16 and what could be a really fun matchup with them and UConn.
All right, so we are in agreement there as well. Auburn to the Sweet 16. You have the 6 versus 3 matchup here. And I will say, I might be the only one who picks this one, but I will take BYU over Illinois. Go to the Sweet 16. And I know many of you are probably wondering what the hell I'm smoking, but I'm onto something here. I think this is a pick I made in my bracket too. I'm a little spoiler there. I do like BYU. Illinois, obviously talented, champions of the Big Ten. What have they done in the NCAA tournament? They have no track record of getting the second weekend. This is their best team to do it. Obviously, they had the Coburn year. They couldn't quite get it done. They had a tough matchup against Loyola Chicago the year. I will say. But their defense, man, at times it's not tournament quality. It nearly cost them against Ohio State in the quarterfinals. It nearly cost them against Nebraska in the semifinals. Now, I know they ended up picking up a win in both those games, but I like a gritty BYU team to make a run this year. And perhaps I am the only one taking this pick, but I do like this one. Give me the Cougars.
Yeah, BYU is more than capable. I think you bring up a lot of valid points when we talk about Brigham Young, but just after watching Illinois yesterday and what they did to Wisconsin late, they were down 10 in the second half and then flipped the switch. Terrence Shannon's playing at an NBA level right now. And obviously with the off-the-court issues with Illinois, they've really had to kind of regroup throughout the year, and I think they've done a really good job of that. I think Brad Underwood led them through the adversity really well. Marcus Damask is a stud, and obviously Coleman Hawkins, 3 guys you're going to hear a lot about when you're watching Illinois or talking about Illinois. For that reason, I'm going with the Fighting Illini. I've got them onto the Sweet 16.
Mize, you make some great points about BYU, and this game is going to be maybe the highest scoring game in the tournament if it meet up, because Illinois has struggled defensively and BYU lights it up, but so does Illinois. This one's going to be maybe one of the best games in the tournament. Silently be one of the best games in the tournament. I don't think a lot of people know about BYU, but they're really, really good. I'm only taking Illinois for the sole fact of Terrence Shannon and the level that he is playing at right now. I think he's a really tough matchup for BYU, but I really hope we see these two teams in the Sweet 16 because this could be one of the best games of the tournament. It's going to be high scoring, a lot of firepower all over the court, but I got Illinois.
All right, we had the Illini going on. That was an easy pick. This is where it starts to get tough. The first round games, I don't think you need to spend a lot of time on. It's these second round games that really kind of form your bracket, in my opinion. We have Illinois moving on, and we do have the coveted Drake-Iowa State matchup in the round of 32. I will go ahead and push the Cyclones through here. I'll let Nichols, though, go next. Do you think there is any potential upset here? Personally, I have the Cyclones.
I think it has upset written all over it. I am taking Iowa State, though. I'm sold on Iowa State. They're the best defensive team in the country, and that helps them in March. However, I do think they're gonna wake up for this game. Iowa State struggled when teams have shot it really well, and Drake is capable of shooting it really well from three. Obviously, Tucker DeVries, but Kevin Overton, Carter mentioned Darnell Brody earlier. He's an X factor for him. But Kevin Overton, a freshman guard, shoots it well at and right. He's a junior guard, played at Cal State Northridge. He can fill it up. Connor Enright's a really good guard for him. I just think Drake's got the potential, and with the discontinuation of the Big Four rivalry games a few years back, Drake and UNI, they live for these games. They want to play Iowa. They want to play Iowa State, and this is kind of a chance for them to, really show that they belong in that conversation of, big time programs in the state of Iowa. But I do have Iowa State winning this game. It's a heartbreaking pick for me because anyone knows me. I don't like Iowa State. Otzelberger wears the wrong size shirt. I don't. Something about him. I don't like Iowa State, and that's a hard pick for me. But I do have the Cyclones moving on.
I'm going to take Drake here. I think it's one of those magical March things where we're going to get the opportunity to see an in-state matchup in the national tournament that we no longer get to see in the regular season. Just kind of one of those freak things. Drake's got a great team. So does Iowa State, not discrediting what they have done this season whatsoever, but it's one of those things. It's March. It's just lining up to be a really, really cool deal, an in-state matchup, along with a father-son dynamic that we don't always get to see in the tournament. That could also be a huge storyline. I got Drake going to the Sweet 16 in this one. I think they're going to beat Iowa State. I think it's going to be an absolutely packed house in Omaha, which is where it would be played, correct? Omaha?
Yeah.
Awesome spot for it, right in the heart of the Midwest. There's going to be tons of Drake fans from Des Moines, as well as Iowa State from Des Moines and Ames. Going to be maybe one of the best atmospheres in the tournament, to be completely honest. Really hope we get this matchup in the round of 32, but I got the Bulldogs.
I do love that pick. I do love the Bulldogs pick. And if that is our matchup, I think I would be cheering for the Bulldogs.
I'll be cheering for Drake. I don't think there's any question about that. I like that pick a lot. I didn't have the balls to take it, but yeah, Drake. I think you mentioned the father-son aspect of it too, and playing in Omaha is going to be special for them. Obviously with Darren being at Creighton for almost 20 years, Tucker growing up in Omaha all the way up until he was in high school. So he's been to a lot of games in that arena, and the chance he's going to have to be able to play there now, I think, will be special for their family. So obviously hope they can win 2 games there and get to the Sweet 16.
All right. So it wasn't a clean sweep, but we do have Iowa State moving on. So moving on to, that is all the second round picks from the East region. Moving down to the West, we have North Carolina and Michigan State, like we talked about. A great second round matchup. Nichols, you are a casual. Your second team is North Carolina, so I'll let you make the first official pick in this game.
This is a scary matchup for North Carolina. I think it's scary for anybody when you line up against Tom Izzo, but I do think Carolina is going to win this game. They're the better team. Michigan State's been so up and down throughout the year, and Carolina's had a couple glimpses of hiccups, but when push comes to shove, they're one of the best teams in the country. RJ Davis, ACC Player of the Year. Everyone knows what Armando Bacot's going to do. He's going to go out. He's going to get his 14 points. He's going to get his 12 rebounds. But the emergence of Harrison Ingram this year for North Carolina has been really fun to watch. He's going out and putting up Armando Bacot numbers. So they have 2 guys that are going to get 10 plus rebounds a game. And then Cormac Ryan shooting it well. And then obviously Elliot Cadeau reclassed up. Would have been a senior in high school this year, and he's playing college ball and he's playing at a high level. If he plays well, they have a chance to go a long way. I've got Carolina moving on.
I'm going to go Michigan State here. I love Tom Izzo. This team is just been waiting all year to play their best. And I think we saw a glimpse of that against Purdue in the Big Ten conference tournament. Purdue ultimately was too much for Michigan State at the end, which Purdue is too much for just about every team in the country. But Michigan State has the talent. They have the makeup, and they arguably have the best coach in March. So I'm going to go Michigan State. I can't bet against Izzo. I think they're gonna execute to a T their guard play. They got Hogard. I think Akins is going to start shooting the ball really well. And Walker, he's one of the best guards, creating for himself, getting to the rim, creating his own jump shot in the country. I think they're going to get North Carolina here.
All right, so I got the tiebreaker on this one. And I think I'm going to go with Michigan State. They did it last year as a 7 seed, taking down the 2 seed Marquette. I think they do it again as a 9 seed this year, beat North Carolina in the round of 32. I'm not super confident on that one, but I think that's what I'm going to roll with here as our official pick. It's like Carter, you kind of nudged me in the right direction there. It seems like now is the time where they finally play. Not at any point in this entire year have they played to their full potential. So why not now? Why not now? I'm going to take them. I'm going to have them move on. I think, we need to have a little bit of a shakeup, and I think that's a good first kind of interesting move we have in our bracket. I do like that one, and I am confident in that one. So we do have a 9 seed in this Sweet 16. We're not just here to pick favorites. And I also, if you don't mind, I kind of want to save the last pick for myself on this next one. So I'll let someone else, let you guys go first in this one. St. Mary's, Alabama. Are you guys, I think you might have the same answer here, but we'll see. What do you guys have for this one?
Yeah, I'll start us off with this one. I got St. Mary's. I think their style of play is going to present a number of issues for Alabama. I think them slowing it down, being methodical. I mean, you watch St. Mary's play, they don't really start running their offensive action till 15, 16 seconds left on the shot clock. I mean, they're really trying to slow this thing down, play in the 50s. They're going to play fundamentally sound help defense. They're going to force tough shots. And I think them slowing this game down is really going to hurt Alabama. I think Alabama is going to rush into some really bad shots. I think they're going to have some turnover issues as well. I got St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's is going to make the Sweet 16. Randy Bennett's got one of his best teams in as long as I can remember. I mean, I don't remember the last time they've beaten Gonzaga twice in a year. But Randy Bennett's got a great team. They play a distinct style of basketball that is a complete contrast to Alabama, and I like St. Mary's in this one.
I'm going to tell you, I've got St. Mary's. I think their style of basketball is just going to frustrate Alabama early. And Alabama can't defend. So when St. Mary's is taking 15, 20 seconds off the clock before they run their action, they're going to get whatever shot they want still. And I think a guy like Aiden Mahaney is going to go out. He's going to get his token 17, 18 points. He's going to hit 3 or 4 threes. And they're going to be late shot clock shots. And I think that's really going to fluster Alabama. I mean, Alabama obviously has the firepower to score a lot and score in a hurry, but St. Mary's is so sound defensively that I think when they get up, they're going to control the pace. They're going to get stops, and it's just really a game that Alabama is going to remember for a few years of just an ugly one that they are trying to forget, but they can't forget. And Randy Bennett gets the Gales back to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2010.
All right, I want to save my pick for last because I thought maybe there's a chance where I had to make the tie-breaking pick for St. Mary's, but that's not the case. We are in agreement. St. Mary's, I think, absolutely takes down Alabama. Crimson Tide last year, people left and right were picking them to win the tournament. I had them going down the second round to San Diego State. I'm doing that again this year. They go down in the second round to St. Mary's, a team who I think many people will not even pick to win that first game. So I like that. I think that's a solid pick. I have St. Mary's also. We are in full agreement, sending the Gales to the Sweet 16 to face off against Izzo. That smells like a great bracket to me. Moving on, we have New Mexico and Baylor. This is a tough pick. I've been high on Baylor all year long. And I'm usually not a huge Scott Drew fan, but I really liked how they played this year. I think they move on, though. I think I'm going to go with New Mexico. I'm not confident on this one. I think you could easily pick Baylor here. But at the same time, also, I'm very high on Arizona. So no matter who goes here, I don't think they're going to keep moving on. So I might as well keep this bracket, especially this region, funky here. And I'm going to take the 11, New Mexico, who's playing good ball, over Baylor.
I don't hate the pick. I think they're more than capable of doing it. However, I do think Baylor's too disciplined. I think Baylor has Sweet 16 written all over them. Jacoby Walter, Ray J. Dennis, they play well together, and I think Scott Drew's going to have them ready to go. I think New Mexico's run ends in the round of 32. Give me Baylor.
I got Baylor as well. I think this is a game where you're going to see Scott Drew play multiple defenses. He's notorious for doing that. The year they won the national championship, they were really, really good man-to-man team. But this year, they've played a lot of man-to-man. They've also played a lot of like a 1-3-1, 3-2 zone, which in March could present a lot of problems. Not a lot of teams are used to playing against a zone. I think this is a game where we could potentially see Scott Drew make it a mid-game adjustment, play some zone, play some man. I think that gives New Mexico some troubles. I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears here.
This is a tough round of 32 matchup because I think they're both very talented and kind of both flying a little bit under the radar. I think that probably it's a smart move to push Baylor through, and that's what we are doing to the Sweet 16. Baylor, the 3 seed. Will they face Arizona or will they face Nevada? Real quick, I got Arizona. I think Arizona gets past Nevada. I don't know. I don't even know if it's going to be that much of a battle. So I got Arizona.
I've got Arizona as well. I think they present too much star power for Nevada to handle. If Caleb Love's not hitting shots, they go to Omar Balu underneath. And I mean, he's bigger than almost everybody they're going to play against. But Caleb Love he's so good on the perimeter, and he hits tough shots. He takes a lot of tough shots, but Arizona's going to get to the Sweet 16.
I got Nevada here. I got the Wolfpack. I got Steve Wofford going to the Sweet 16. Arizona has been susceptible to being upset a couple times this year. Of recent, they got beat by USC right before the conference tournament. And then they also lost in the conference tournament. I'm trying to think who they lost to. Oh, Oregon. Not that that was an upset, but Oregon's a capable team. But I got Nevada here. I'm not going to let Arizona burn me 2 years in a row. I think their recent woes in the NCAA tournament is just too fresh in my mind. And I think Nevada definitely has the makeup to make a Sweet 16. They've had some really good wins throughout the year. They've won 7 of their last 8, like I said earlier. I think they're going to the Sweet 16 here.
All right, so not full agreement, but we do push Arizona to go to the Sweet 16. And I definitely understand the pick. They burned us last year. They were a champ last year. And like I said, Tommy Lloyd nearly went out in the second round 2 years ago to TCU. So, and he's, like I said, also 0-4 against the spread. Not a good track record to start so far, but we do have him moving on. And now we go to the South region. Houston and A&M in the second round. This is an interesting matchup, and I love Houston. I think I picked them to win my bracket the last 2 years in a row. This is an interesting matchup because A&M, I thought, had like a top 15, maybe top 10 roster at the beginning of the year. They kind of figured it out there at the end, played good in the conference tournament. And I'm tempted to take them here. I think I will slide Houston on, though. Too talented of a team, too much veterans on this team with experience and postseason success the last couple of years. I'm tempted to pull the upset here, but I think Houston does get by. I think it could be interesting, but I think Houston does win, and I'm pretty confident on that one too. But A&M gave me a little bit of a thought.
I'm going with Houston. I think A&M's got the potential to win this game. I think they're athletic enough to hang around for a long time. I think with recent basketball you've seen in the SEC, it's just been a lot of athletic basketball, and A&M obviously fits that to a T, and I think that could provide some issues for Houston. But Houston's battle tested. LJ Cryer, Jamal Shed, they're gonna be ready to go, and I think Kelvin Sampson gets these guys back to the Sweet 16.
I got Houston as well. Call me crazy, but I think it's actually kind of a good thing they lost in the conference championship game. I think there's going to be a big sense of urgency from the Houston Cougars to get their crap together and win some games in this tournament. And if you know Calvin Sampson, he is maybe the hardest of all coaches. I mean, he is screaming at his players. They are tough as nails. I guarantee you they are going through hell at practice this week. They are going to be hungry to get some wins in this tournament. And I just think they're too solid defensively, too disciplined for Texas A&M. I like Houston. I like Houston a lot in this one.
Yeah, I think that is a good thing for them too. And to get smacked around the way they did, that doesn't usually happen to them ever by anybody. So I think they're going to get the message through, like you said, these next couple of days here. I think Kelvin Sampson's going to drill it into their head. There's going to be no fucking around in the tournament, I think, this year for that, especially after that loss. So we have Houston to the Sweet 16, Wisconsin and Duke in the second round. I think Duke's going to lose in the first round, so I'm taking the Badgers here. I would not be shocked if Duke does win. I would not be shocked to see them beat Wisconsin here too. Again, very talented, but I'm going to go with the Badgers in this one.
I'm with you, Mize. I think Wisconsin, they've got a lot of demons when they play Duke. Duke's just had their number throughout the years, but I think this is the team that gets it done. I'm kind of with you. I could see Duke losing to Vermont, but I mean, look at who Duke had. I mean, I already had my rant about Filipowski, so I'm not going to digress on that again. But like Ryan Young, keep the politics off Twitter, buddy. You're not even good. So yeah, I like Wisconsin here. I just think they're tougher. Well, they're obviously tougher. You look at the way Duke plays basketball; they have to play dirty to have a chance. So, Greg Gard, John Shire, two guys that actually pretty much they did start on third base. To be honest with you, Greg Gard was handed the Wisconsin program after a couple Final Four runs. Obviously, John Shire followed up Coach K, but Greg Gard. He's a better coach than John Shire. I like Wisconsin to get to the Sweet 16.
I like Wisconsin here too, and to me, I'm kind of getting this feeling this tournament is lining up for Wisconsin to make a little run here. You look at the end of the Bo Ryan tenure, where they were making some serious noise in the tournament. They made the Final Four, then they lost the national championship the following year. Their first couple years of the Greg Gard era, they were also making Sweet 16s. As of late, they haven't really made a lot of noise. I think this is the year where Wisconsin makes a Sweet 16. They make some noise in this tournament, and they have the makeup to make a run. I mean, look at the beginning of the year when they were playing their best basketball. Josh mentioned it earlier, but I was in agreement with him. Wisconsin was an early favorite of mine to make this Final Four. Then they hit a tough stretch in February, like a lot of teams do, but it was really good to see them get back on track in the conference tournament. I think they beat Duke, and I think they make the Sweet 16.
All right, so all in agreement there. Wisconsin to the Sweet 16. 6-3 matchup. This is going to be a hell of a game. Texas Tech and Kentucky. And this is a game I've kind of gone back and forth on. And I think I will lean Kentucky. Just because there's a little bit of sense of urgency, like we alluded to with Calipari. And they've been playing good ball. They picked up some good wins. Looking at some of their recent wins here down the line, they beat Auburn. They beat Alabama in a game when they scored 117 points. They beat Mississippi State at the close out the regular season. And then in the conference tournament, they picked up a win against Tennessee before losing. So I do think that Kentucky will win this game. But I do like Joe Toussaint. I do like Texas Tech. I think it could be close. But Kentucky, I think, like I said, needs a little bit of urgency here in the tournament. So I do think they move on. I think they have a little bit more firepower as well.
I got Kentucky too. It just seems like this year, with the recent struggles of Kentucky in the national tournament, that Calipari is going to turn it around. They have the talent. They have the guard play to do so. I think this is going to be a really fun team to watch in this tournament. I think they're going to get hot. I think they're going to play a fun style of basketball. And I think they're going to get on a run here and win some games. So I got Kentucky.
I've got Kentucky as well. They're just playing really good right now, and they can fill it up. And I think Texas Tech's not going to have enough firepower to have an answer for it. I think John Calipari, like you alluded to, Mize, a sense of urgency to kind of, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat, but Kentucky basketball, their fans are psychotic. So they've been calling for his firing for a couple of years, and it's like, dude, you've had really good teams. You just had some tough tournament matchups. Obviously, the St. Peter's loss is inexcusable, but I mean, St. Peter's beat Purdue that year too. So I have Kentucky. I do think they get to the Sweet 16, and they're a team that you could see them playing in Phoenix.
All right, so we have Kentucky moving on. And we did have Florida, right, over Colorado. Okay, so we have Florida and Marquette. I think Florida could give them a hell game if they're at full strength, but I do think that injury to the center was great defensive player around the rim, and I'm very high on Marquette, so I'm taking Marquette to get past Florida here. Could be a little bit of a test though.
I've got Marquette as well. Obviously, Cam Jones is a stud. I mentioned Oso Ighodaro and David Joplin. If Tyler Kolek's healthy and playing, I mean, they've got a chance to go really far. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of did what maybe Kansas did, maybe had some inside information on their conference tournament. Wasn't really going to be a make or break for them seeding wise. Obviously, they lost to Connecticut in that Big East title game without Tyler Kolek. But yeah, I've got Marquette on the Sweet 16. With Florida's injuries, I don't see them really posing a threat to beat Marquette.
I got Marquette as well, and quite honestly, I think they're going to cruise in this one. I think this is a game where Marquette's going to play really well. They got the same core of guys they had last year when they won the Big East, and had a tough match in the round of 32 against Michigan State. Close game though. They got the same core of guys. They're experienced. I think Kolek's going to be ready to go. I got them cruising this one. I think they're going to win comfortably.
I like that too. I'm glad we're pushing them through. No upset there. Let's go to the Midwest. Purdue avoids the 16 upset this year. We have them in the second round, facing off against Utah State. I don't see any troubles here again for Purdue. I know it's the Boilermakers. I know it's Matt Painter. I saw what they did last year, but I do think this is still a favorable matchup for them. I don't think it'll be this year. It could even be like a double-digit game, like a 72 to 62 game, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've got Purdue by double digits. I just think they're really complete this year, and obviously they've had the guards around Zach Edey, but I think Lance Jones brings a type of athleticism to them that really helps them out on the perimeter. He's a ball handler, but he's fast. He's strong. He just makes plays for him. And obviously, Zach Edey's going to do his thing. He's going to get calls. He's going to get his 20 and 12. But I mean, guys like Braden Smith too. Braden Smith's a hell of a facilitator for him. I swear, every time I look at their box score, he's got 7 to 10 assists somewhere in there. But he just makes things happen for him. And then guys like Mason Gillis, he's experienced. Foster Lawyer. I just think Purdue's too deep for Utah State to have a chance.
Purdue's going to roll in this one. I just don't think there's any chance this tournament where Purdue gets upset by an inferior opponent. They might get beat, but it's going to be by a really good team. I think they're going to roll. The addition of Lance Jones, like Josh mentioned, has been monumental for this team. It gives them another guard who can score, and honestly, his best value probably comes on the defensive end. Now they got a stopper at that guard position on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to roll here. And just a little insight into the future, I really think Purdue's going to make the Final Four. I just think it's destiny. It's kind of like that Virginia freak deal where they lost to UBC or UMBC. I think they're going to make the Final Four this year, and they're going to roll against Utah State.
All right. We have the Purdue Boilermakers running on in the second round against Utah State to go to the Sweet 16. And then in the next matchup, we had McNeese State with the upset over Gonzaga facing Kansas in the second round. You know what? Hey, if McNeese is here, I'm going to take them again. I'm going to take them to beat Kansas in this upset. I think, as a Kansas team that hasn't really played super cohesive as a team, it just seems like they haven't really gelled well, and that's kind of what happens when you have a mix of players in for the portal and all that. It's kind of a question mark. How is this team going to gel? On paper, they're loaded. We haven't seen the results. So I think McNeese State in this game is going to cause a lot of turnovers. I think they're going to get under Kansas' skin. And I think we get a big upset here. So I like McNeese State.
I'm with you. Will Wade's going to continue to be the light for Lake Charles, Louisiana. McNeese State, Sweet 16. I had him playing Samford in this game, but I mean, as a podcast, we have them playing against Kansas. I don't see this Kansas team being the one that makes a run. They're way too vulnerable this year, which is tough because they have good players. McCullough and Dickinson is one of the best 1-2 punches in the country. And I don't think anyone's going to argue that, but I've got the niche. McNeese State, Sweet 16.
I got McNeese State as well. There's going to be a double-digit seed in the Sweet 16. There just is. I feel like there's always a team like that makes a little run. I think McNeese fits that mold. They got the perfect opportunity to do so. They're playing against a Kansas team who's banged up, really haven't played to their potential as of late. I think Will Wade is going to make the Sweet 16 here with McNeese State.
Awesome. We're rolling with McNeese at the Sweet 16. No arguments, no questions asked. Put them in. And we have Altman in the second round against Creighton, the Blue Jays. Would this be a hell of a matchup if it was Oregon and Creighton? And you know what? I do believe Dana Altman gets it done again here. I know Creighton went on a big run last year. Very talented roster. Probably should win this game. I like an upset here. I like Oregon to go to the Sweet 16. It's just the Altman effect.
I got Oregon too, Mize. I love the pick. It's really hard to make 2 Elite 8s in a row. It's really hard. And I think this is where we see Ryan Nemhard not being on this Creighton team really coming back to hurt them. He was kind of the glue of that team last year. He set the table for everybody, got them into their offense, was a good ball handler under pressure. I think Altman just got this team playing really, really good basketball right now. As you mentioned before, phenomenal against the spread in March. And he's just made a number of runs throughout his tenure at Oregon. I really like this Oregon team and the way they're playing. I got them going in the Sweet 16.
I'm with you guys. I think Oregon gets this one done. They're healthy. They're playing their best ball. Dana Altman, he aligns Rubik's Cubes. He's a scary matchup to see in March. I've got the Ducks flying to the Sweet 16.
All right. We got 3 consensus picks on 2 double-digit seeds going to the Sweet 16 in this region. McNeese and Oregon. We're all on the same page. Now we have Colorado State moving on from the first 4 to the second round now. They won the first 4 game. They won the first round game. We have them facing off against Tennessee. We talked about Rick Barnes' struggles in the tournament. I think he will get everything he can handle from Colorado State in this game, but I do see them winning a squeaker. I think it might be a 1-possession game. I think it might come down to the end. I think Colorado State will give them everything they can handle, but I do think Tennessee squeaks by in this one.
Nico Medved, welcome to reality, pal. I got Tennessee. I think I'm with you. I could see it being a close game because Colorado State's scrappy. If it comes down to a 1-possession game, I got a Vescovy 3 late for Tennessee to advance, but I got them winning by anywhere from that 5 to 9 mark. I think it gets dicey late, but I think Tennessee's comfortable for most of the second half. I've got the Volunteers, Sweet.
I got Tennessee as well. Rick Barnes is going to make the Sweet 16 for 2 years in a row. Ultimately, I just don't think Dalton Connect is going to let this team lose to Colorado State. He's going to put this Tennessee team on his back. He's going to will them to victory, and we're going to see the Volunteers in the Sweet 16.
All right, we have Volunteers in Sweet 16. So now we are in the Sweet 16, going back up to the East region on the top left-hand side of your bracket. UConn against Auburn. Holy shit, this is going to be a great game. Well, I'll just say this. We talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. It's super hard for teams to repeat. So I don't have UConn as my national champ this year. I'm not going to tell you who I do have, but I don't have UConn as my national champ. So why not pick them to lose here? Why not pick them to lose against Bruce Pearl, who's gone to the Final Four at Auburn in recent memory, who won the SEC tournament? I like the Tigers to roll here. Not roll, but to win here and move on to the Elite Eight in an upset. Hey, I might be the only one picking this one here. We'll have to see, but I do think I think he runs into a buzzsaw here and loses.
That's a hell of a pick, Mize. I'm with you. I think UConn is head and shoulders better than everyone in the tournament, but I think that might be the reason they don't win it. Is they won it last year. We talked about how hard it is to go back to back. Hasn't been done in 17 years. I don't see them going back to back, and I do think they're the best team in the tournament, but they're going to get beat at some point in this tournament. I don't think they run through it like they did last year. They're capable of it, but I don't think they will. I like Auburn. I like how they're built. I like the style of ball they play, and I like them to get to the Elite Eight.
I got UConn in this one, but I'm also in agreement with you guys. UConn is not going to make the Final Four this year. They're just going to get beat by Illinois in the Elite Eight. That's where I think Illinois is going to get them rather than Auburn. UConn is so good, but it's one of those March things. It just seems too good to be true, for them to go back to back. It's been talked about all year. I just have a feeling they're going to run into a team that's really hot, which is very well could be Auburn, very well could be Illinois or Iowa State. but I think they're going to lose to Illinois in the Elite Eight. I do think they'd beat Auburn, though, in the Sweet 16.
I'm with
right,
you
so-
on that. Actually, I have Illinois beating Auburn in the Elite Eight. Sorry to kind of jump ahead on you there, but I have Illinois
go
over
ahead.
Iowa State in the Sweet 16. And if Illinois matches up with Auburn, that's going to be a fucking awesome basketball game. But I do have Brad Underwood and the Illini finally getting to the Final Four. They're playing their best ball, and we keep mentioning Terrence Shannon Jr. He is a freak. He is a stud. He is very hard to guard. He had 40 in the semis, had 30 plus in the Big Ten championship. I like Illinois.
I do like, in this hypothetical matchup, I do like Illinois too as well to move on against Iowa State. In my bracket, I have BYU playing Iowa State here. Now, some of you listening might be in similar pools as me, so I'm not going to tell you who I would hypothetically pick if it were BYU, since I don't have to reveal that. We have Illinois, and I do think Illinois will beat Iowa State. So Iowa State, despite the press performance, goes down in the Sweet 16 in our bracket. Moving to the West, this is our fun bracket here. We have Michigan State and St. Mary's in the Sweet 16. And, okay, well, I'll just kick us off right here. You would think we have Michigan State just beat UNC. They're going to beat St. Mary's. I think something weird happens here, and I think St. Mary's wins again. Now, maybe you have Michigan State moving on. I like St. Mary's. They lead 8. Wouldn't that be fun?
I think it would be fun, but it's not going to happen. I think if Izzo's got his boys playing well and they get this far, they're going to keep rolling. I like Michigan State over Randy Bennett. I think it's kind of an ugly game. I think it's like 59-53. I think it's played exactly how St. Mary's wants to play it, but I think they fuck up late and Michigan State exploits it, and they exploit the fact that they've got better players and they're more athletic. I like Michigan State late. Come back to the Elite Eight.
I got Michigan State too, and I'm going to kind of make a bombshell statement here. I think this is Tom Izzo's last year coaching. I think he's going to hang it up after this year. I think this new era of the transfer portal, NIL, I think it's kind of running some of these older legendary coaches who have done things a certain way for so long. I think it's kind of running them out of the game. We saw it with Roy Williams. We saw it with Coach K. I think Tom Izzo's last year in Michigan State and coaching is this year. And I think because of that, they're going to get on a little magical run here. I got them going to the Elite Eight.
All right. Hey, I like that too. I think you might be correct. Even like Rick Pitino has just talked about how much he hates it. Even if he continues to coach, you can tell that some of these older guys are it's not what they like to see. They like paying their players under the table, not the legal way. Talking about Pitino there. Baylor and Arizona in the West. I got Arizona here. Very high on Baylor, but I know they let us down last year, and maybe that should be the reason why we don't trust them this year, but maybe I'm just a forgiving guy. I think I'm going to spin it the other way. I think they let us down this year, so they're going to get our backs this year. I like Arizona over Baylor in the Sweet 16.
I'm going with Baylor here. I think this is the game where Caleb Love shoots Arizona out of it. I talked about him taking tough shots, and obviously he has the capability to make them. He's a very talented player. He's one of the best players in the country, but he has his nights. And I watched it the last 3 years at Carolina, and he's done it a couple times at Arizona this year. He'll take some shots, and you're just like, what is he thinking? But I think that's just the way they play, and he's got the green light to do it because he's capable of hitting tough shots. But I think this is the game he shoots him out of it, and Baylor gets to the Elite Eight for a rematch of an early season game against Michigan.
You get in this point in the tournament, I think a lot of what you see in who wins games has a lot to do with coaching. Guys who know how to win a march, who have been there, who have done that. Well, in 2020, Baylor won the national championship. Or was it 2021? I'm trying to remember. Was it 21? Yeah. It was the 2020-21 season. Anyways, they won a national title. I trust Scott Drew over Tommy Lloyd in the tournament. That is the reason why I'm taking Baylor in this one.
All right, so the Bears to the Elite Eight. Going down to the South, Houston, Wisconsin. I think Houston wins this game here. Like we talked about, they're pissed off. Wisconsin, good run in the Sweet 16. They could maybe give them some fits. I wouldn't be shocked if they pulled the upset, but I do like the Cougars.
I'm with you. I've got Houston. I think this is a game that's going to be very fun to watch. It's going to be great defense. Wisconsin scores it more than they typically do. They're higher scoring than they have been in the past when they've had good teams. And I think Wisconsin gets to the second weekend and proves their legitimacy this year. But I do think Houston's just going to be too much. I'm with Carter. Like Iowa State beating them in the Big 12 championship was really good for them. They're going to be going through hell this week in practice, and they're not going to bow out in the first 3 weeks.
I got Houston as well. I think their physicality and athleticism is going to give Wisconsin some troubles. I think Wisconsin's going to compete. I think they're capable of doing so. But I think guys like Klesmet, Crowell, and Tyler Wall are going to struggle in this game. Houston's just really athletic. They're really physical. And ultimately, Wisconsin's not going to be able to score enough to win this game. So I got the Houston Cougars.
All right, we are all in agreement there on that one. Kentucky and Marquette in this region, the Sweet 16. I'm going to rock with Marquette in this one. I am a UK student right now, so I probably shouldn't say that, but I do think Marquette gets by them. Kentucky's just too streaky. I think Marquette has a top 4, top 5 legitimate roster in college basketball. If Kolek's healthy, I see them rolling through Kentucky here.
I've got Kentucky. I think this is one of those games that they keep the offense rolling. You mentioned they're streaky. I mean, yeah, they're capable of losing in the round of 64. They're also capable of winning it all. And I think if they get hot here, that streakiness shows, and they're going to keep moving on, at least to the Elite Eight. I want to see a Kentucky-Houston game so bad because just Kentucky's offensive explosiveness versus Houston's defense would be so fun for me to watch. And I think all of America would be able to agree with that. But I've got Kentucky over Marquette.
I got Kentucky too, and that's because of Rob Dillingham. I think he's going to leave his mark on this tournament. He is a special, special talent. I have never once in my life compared a player to Kyrie Irving in his college years, but I think Rob Dillingham has the skill set and shot-making ability of a Kyrie Irving, especially at this point in time in his career. I think ultimately he's going to get in a zone where he just becomes almost to a point unstoppable. He's going to be able to score at will, and I think he's going to will this Kentucky team to victory.
All right, so we have Kentucky getting the monkey off their backs and going to the Elite Eight. In the Midwest region, the Sweet 16 matchup, we have Purdue and McNeese. We are all agreement that Purdue would probably beat Utah State quite handily. Now, do they do the same through McNeese? I would probably say the same again. I know, Carter, you said you had them in the Final Four, so I think we can move Purdue on. Do you agree, Nichols?
I'm with you. I think McNeese makes a hell of a run to the Sweet 16, but Zach Edey, this is that game where he takes over, shows why he's going to be back-to-back National Player of the Year. I think this is a game where he's got 30 points and 16 rebounds, and McNeese just doesn't have the size to hang with him. But a hell of a run for
Purdue to the Elite Eight. And a final matchup in the Sweet 16 round, we have Oregon on the Cinderella run against Tennessee. I think it does end here, unfortunately, for Altman and company. Again, we talked about Rick Barnes' struggles in the tournament, but in this matchup here, I do like the Vols, and I do think the Vols can go pretty far this year, despite their track record and despite Rick Barnes' track record. But I do have the Vols over Oregon.
I'm with you. I think Tennessee ends their run. I think it's a fun up and down game. We've seen Tennessee getting some shootouts this year, and I think this one has that written all over it, just with athleticism both teams bring to the table. But I like Tennessee to face Purdue in the Elite.
I got Tennessee as well. In years past, Tennessee's been really good defensively, but at times they've struggled to score the ball. This year, that's not the case. I would say their defense and their offense are both strengths of theirs, and this is what ultimately is going to bring them to the Elite Eight this year. So I got Tennessee.
All right, let's go to the Elite Eight. Back to the East region, we have Auburn getting 2 out of the 3 picks over UConn. So they are in the Elite Eight against Illinois. Now, this is tough. I think I'm going to go with Auburn here. Even though it's very tough. It's a close call. But I'm going to slightly lean Auburn in this one. Bruce Pearl's been in the Final Four. Illinois has a great roster and definitely a Final Four worthy roster. I just don't know if I can trust them to put it all together and go all the way to the Final Four. So I will lean Auburn, even though I do think Illinois probably does have a better roster, maybe.
I'm going with Illinois. It pains me because I like this Auburn team. Their assistant coach, Chad Pruitt, his daughter was my favorite Bachelor contestant back in 2020, Maddie Pruitt. Married now, so good for her. But I always had a big crush on her. So you'll catch me cheering for Auburn basketball here and there. Just, a guy can dream, right? But yeah, I think the run ends here. Illinois playing their best ball of the year, and it's going to show in the Elite Eight, Illinois to Phoenix.
I want to make a comment here. I have Illinois beating UConn in the Elite Eight, but if they were to play Auburn, I actually have Auburn. I think Auburn would win that matchup against Illinois. So I'm going to go Auburn here. I know I said Illinois earlier would win the Elite Eight, but I think that's against UConn. But if they play Auburn, I got Auburn.
All right, so we have Auburn, and like I said, this might not be our exact brackets, but I think when we pull our heads together, I think 2 out of 3 gets it done most of the time. I like our general consensus. So in that matchup, we do have Auburn in the Final Four. Bruce Pearl gets back. In the West region, the Elite Eight, we have Michigan State and Baylor as our hypothetical matchup. Izzo and Scott Drew. In this one, I would take Baylor. I think Baylor will get by. I don't think it's easy. And obviously, I'm a Big Ten guy, so if this was a matchup, we'll be rooting Michigan State. But I do think Baylor would barely get by Michigan in this one.
I think we see what happened early in the year. I think Michigan State, I'm kind of with Carter. I think this is Izzo's last year. I think this is that March magic that we see. And I think it's just kind of destiny for Michigan State. If this is his last year, he's going to make a run and they're going to make it count. I've got Izzo to the Final Four. Big Ten.
As much as I love Michigan State, I'm taking Baylor here. I just think they have the talent. They're a really good all-around team. And like I mentioned earlier, I think them being able to play multiple defenses is really going to help them come tournament time. It's hard to prepare for. Baylor's a hard team to prepare for because they got a multitude of guys who can score it, and they also play a number of different defenses, which can throw you off your game. So I got Baylor.
All right, so we do have Baylor moving on to the Final Four. So the East-West in the Final Four, you have Auburn at 4 and Baylor at 3. I like that. I mean, if you just pick ones versus ones, it's not going to happen. That's not how it works, and you're going to have a losing bracket. I think we're doing things right here so far. Even if it's not what you might expect, I think we have a good bracket plugging along here. Let's go to the South, Kentucky and Houston in the Elite Eight. In this matchup here, I do think I would go, I think I'm going to go Houston, but it's going to be very tough, and I'm tempted to take Kentucky. But Houston experienced team, Kelvin Sampson, I think does get back to the Final Four. But, man, I really want to pick Kentucky here.
I want to pick Kentucky here too. I love Kentucky, but I'm with you. I'm taking Houston. I think their experience, I think their discipline, and ultimately the common saying is defense wins championships. That's Houston's strength. That's what their identity is. I think them being able to get stops consistently, as where Kentucky has struggled defensively this year, is what's going to propel them to win this game. I got Houston.
I'm with you guys. I'm taking Houston. I'd love to see Kentucky get to the Final Four, but we've just seen Houston kind of fall out here. I mean, they went to the Elite Eight 2 years ago, Final Four 3 years ago, and then fell in the Sweet 16 last year. But I just think this is the year they get to the Final Four again. I think Kelvin Sampson's going to have them right.
All right, so we have Kelvin Sampson in the Final Four. In the final Elite Eight game, 1 seed Purdue, 2 seed Tennessee. This is an interesting matchup. I do think Tennessee would win this game. I think Purdue. It seems like they could go farther than a lot of people are going. They're going to go down right away. I don't think they're going down right away. But in this matchup, it seems like Tennessee would win this game. I do think. But I think it will be a great game down to the wire.
I think Tennessee's more than capable of winning this game. I feel like this is the game that Purdue gets just calls late, and Tennessee fans are just, this is the one we're going to see blow up on social media after. I think Purdue's going to get every call down the stretch. Edey's going to get a couple bullshit calls that go his way. And for that reason, I think Purdue wins by 4. Purdue.
Yeah, I got Purdue. I know I've been quoted earlier in this podcast saying Purdue is going to make the Final Four. I truly believe that. I think it's their destiny. I think they have the roster to do so. Um, Braden Smith. Braden Smith's going to make play late. Purdue.
All right, we're moving Purdue on. We're down to our Final Four here. In the East-West, it's a 3-4 matchup. We have Auburn and Baylor. And shit, this is a toss-up almost. I think that I will go with I think I'll go with Auburn. I think I'll go with Auburn to go to the national championship game. This will be a tough matchup though. So I'll go with Auburn. But I'm not super confident.
I'm with you. They played it earlier in the year. I liked Auburn to have revenge. Baylor beat them 88-82 in November. And I think Auburn gets the revenge. Auburn gets to the national championship if this is the matchup.
I got Auburn too. Bruce Pearl. Enough said.
Bruce Pearl to the national championship game, coming out of the East region. In the South Midwest, Houston and Purdue in what would be just a phenomenal game. And wow, I think I would go Purdue. I don't know why. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but in this matchup, I think if we have Purdue going to the Final Four, I think they're going to avenge last year. I think they're going to go back and do what they did, and do what Virginia did, and go to the national championship game. So I'm going to pick Purdue here, but I don't know.
I'm with you. I think Purdue. This is the game where the addition of Lance Jones pays its final dividends. I think the athleticism of Houston would have provided the Purdue of yesterday incredible fits, but the Purdue of today beats them. Matt Painter, they get to the Final Four and they get to the national championship. And look at this, Bruce Pearl and Auburn are in the Final Four playing against a team who lost to a 16 seed the year before. Seen that before.
I got Purdue. We talk about Houston's defense. We talk about their pedigree. I don't care what anybody says. There's not a defense you can draw up or scheme up to guard a 7-4 gargantuan post. I think ultimately Zach Edey is what leads them to victory here. Also, I think Zach Edey has a big impact defensively in this game. I think Houston struggles to score over top of him. So I got Purdue going to the national championship.
All right, so that sets us up for a national championship held on April 8th. It's the Auburn Tigers, the champions out of the SEC, making a run and going to the national championship. Purdue loses to a 16 last year. They make a run to the championship game. Do they get it done against the Tigers? In this case, you know what? I'd say yes, they do.
I think the team of destiny, Purdue, loses the national championship to Auburn. I think Auburn's just got it rolling right now. They're playing with the swagger. They're playing with the confidence. They got the talent. Bruce Pearl is a player's coach. He loves his guys. I think they get it done. I got Auburn beating Purdue in the national championship.
I'm taking Auburn. I think the winner of the East region wins it unless it's Carolina in the Final Four. I think the East is a gauntlet this year. I think whoever comes out of that region is going to be battle tested. I mean, if you get to the Final Four, you're going to be battle tested, but in that region in particular, it's a scary region. So I think the winner that comes out of that is got a really good chance to win the national title. And for that reason, Bruce Pearl and Auburn cut down the nets in Phoenix.
All right, fellas. Hey, I don't think that's how any of us expected this to shake out, but as it shakes out, I do like that pick a lot. I like Bruce Pearl. I like the Auburn Tigers as our national champion this year. I think that East region, whoever claws their way out, and I don't think it's going to be UConn. So I do like this Auburn pick. I do also like Purdue to get the national championship game. No one's going to be predicting them to go no one's going to predict them to go to the national championship game. A lot of people won't have them in their Final Four. So I think go against the trend. Get them in there and get the Tigers in there as well. National champs. What do you guys think?
I like it. I think Auburn really poses a threat with their depth and their athleticism. So I like Auburn to get there, and I like Auburn to get it done if these matchups happen. Yeah, so thanks for having me on, Mize. I know Carter and I enjoyed. I'll let him say his piece here, but obviously I appreciate you having us on. This has been a fun bracket talk. I enjoyed it last year, and it was a hot commodity, so I'm glad that we were able to give the people what they wanted and, make a return and hopefully turn this into an annual thing.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Nichols. I know you got a pickleball game we got to get to, so hop to it.
Mize, thanks for having us on. I love our bracket. It's never something you can just set in stone. I feel like very seldomly do you have all 4 1 seeds advance to the Final Four. So I like our differences in picks. I like our upset picks. And yeah, I know I appreciate you having us on again. Always have a blast doing this. And as Josh said, hopefully we can make this an annual thing. I think we had quite a few people tuned in for parts of our segment today. So appreciate your hospitality on the podcast, Mize, and maybe we can talk some Twins baseball soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining me. We'll get some Twins talk here. MLB regular season right around the corner. NCAA tournament starts this week. Carter, Cuvelier, Josh Nichols joining me tonight. We are saying goodbye here. And you know what? I think I will post this bracket. I will post it to the Instagram page. And even if it is not even if it's not Auburn going to the national championship game, I think the big sentiment the three of us have here is it's not going to be UConn. That's the popular pick. UConn runs it back. It hasn't happened since the Florida Gators back in 06 and 07, and they had a hell of a team. They had a hell of a coach. And this East region is a gauntlet. It's loaded. It's got Iowa State. It's got Auburn. It's got BYU. It's got tough teams in it, and it's just very tough for a team to go back to back. And I don't think it's going to happen. So even if it's not Auburn in a championship game, I think that's our biggest takeaway kind of as a whole is that East region, it's just not as easy as it's going to be. I don't think that's the pick to make this year as your national champion. It's very rare. So I think that's our main takeaway from that. We do have Purdue getting the national championship game. We do have Auburn. I like those picks. I'm confident in those. Thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. First Four starts tomorrow. NIT starts tomorrow. You have the women's tournament. A lot of great basketball continuing these next 3 weeks. Looking forward to it. Again, also, if you did not tune into last night, we are doing the Lay'em on the Line Bracket Challenge. Send your bracket to lay'emontheline@gmail.com. That's a show I do with Brandon Russell. I did that show last night. Send your brackets, $10 entry fee. Winner takes the whole pot. Send your bracket. Just needs to be a picture of it. Put your name on it. Write it nice and neat. Send that email to lay'emontheline, LAYEM, on the line @gmail.com before Thursday, before that first game tips off at 11 a.m. Thanks to everybody who tuned in today. Josh Nichols, Carter Cuvelier, second year in a row picking our bracket. I have it saved. We'll get it posted. Put it on the Instagram page. Follow us on Peyton Meisner Comes Alive on Instagram. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight.